but he's not online right yet. So I guess we'll just start the meeting and he can jump in when he gets here, I guess.
Introductions.
Hopefully he hasn't forgotten us. All right, so let's officially begin the Apple Cider meeting for March. Okay, and I'm Shirley Ray, your president. It's been 1 year since I became elected, and I've been virtual for that whole year, which is interesting. Okay, and I want to remind everybody, if they haven't, to make sure that you voted. You can find the link in the March newsletter of where to go to vote.
Web page.
In the email, sorry. All right, and then I think I think everybody knows who all the candidates are. Again, it's going to be me as president. It's going to be, I'm trying to do this from memory now.
Kim.
What?
Kim for vice president.
Kim for vice president of publicity. It's going to be Steve as treasurer and quartermaster for our, the word is eluding me.
Trustee.
Our other board members. What?
Well,
This happens when
trustees?
I don't write it down. Yes, other trustees, whatever. It's going to be Charlie Bergener and Carol Areno, Bob Hoey, Kim Leslie, Douglas Perryman,
Ken Schultz.
and Ken Schultz. Did I say you can? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So if anybody else wants to join, you can put your name down on the ballot if you want to edit. And of course, you're always welcome to come to any board meeting to help out or just to hang out and see what we do. What?
Can you hear me? Okay, couple
Yes.
things.
Yep.
Are we at some point tonight going to change to a formal business meeting
Yes.
for this stuff? Okay, good enough. Also,
Yeah.
people should have seen the ballot by now. I'm not on as a director, I'm on as secretary.
Right. Sorry.
So
I was trying to do it from memory and
right, and the thing is that, you know, I mean, we may go through that again during the official business meeting, but did you get the agenda that I sent out for that?
yes.
Yes.
Good. I tried to, I kind of tripped myself up on that because I highlighted in red block letters the sections of it that were different from the normal meeting when we're in person. And
Right.
then I printed out a copy of it for me to take notes on, except that that's when my inkjet printer died. So I had to print it on a laser, and those are just grayed out on my printed copy, but I hope they're legible for you and it's usable.
Right. Right. I saw that.
Because including in the special notes I made regarding this year, is the fact that because we're using that SurveyMonkey secret ballot thing, the process of adding additional nominees during this meeting, it would be awkward to say the least. So what I'm suggesting is that, you know, if people are satisfied with just going with the ballot that Steve has sent out, fine. If anybody wants to add anybody, probably the easiest way to do that would be for them to join us at next week's board meeting, and then we'll just vote them on.
They can also use the write-in candidate option on each of the positions.
You can do that. Also on that subject, I don't know how many directors we're allowed to have. It's either 7 or 9 or something, but there were not that many. In other words, there were not that many additional other spaces. So, but nevertheless, I don't think this is going to be any kind of a serious problem, but it may be something that we can resolve more easily next week at the board meeting than we can tonight during the official business meeting. That's just my opinion.
Okay.
If we have
All right. Well,
if we have 9 directors on the board,
Right.
that means we would have all the members on the board.
About a third of them at least.
okay. Well, I would like to mention also is that I just got a notice that Amazon Smiles that CIDER received $57.98 from Amazon Smiles as a donation,
Yeah,
which is good.
I saw that Amazon is starting to send messages to everyone that uses the Smile link about how much has been donated.
Yeah, I got
But-
one.
I'm not quite sure I like that.
Now, is that for this year? Or is that how long a date are they talking about?
I don't know.
That's the only thing, is it? Because, it could be over the period of 5 years, who knows? I mean,
It's the last.
or
month.
it could be, yeah, a month. It didn't really say, so, but otherwise, it's very good that we got $57.98.
Well, the
All
other
right,
thing
well,
that,
If that was 1 month, people do a lot more shopping than I do.
Well, it was included the Christmas month, so it's a lot of people bought stuff at Christmas.
Steve, did you get
All
that
right.
as an email?
Pardon?
Did you get that as an email or did it come up when you logged into Amazon?
As an email.
An
Okay.
as
email.
an email.
Yeah.
It's quarterly. That's right. It says in the message it's quarterly. So that was
All right, so last
fourth
3
quarter
months,
last year. Yeah.
people spent a lot of money to give us $57.98. So that's nice of everybody who shopped and gave us a donation. All right, well, I think while we're waiting for Lyle to come, we'll have Steve do a little Q&A. And once Lyle gets here, then we will stop it and we'll let Lyle do his presentation. And then I think maybe then we'll go into the business meeting, depending on what happens. We'll just sort of play by ear for the moment until we know what's going to happen.
Sounds good
All
to me.
right, so go ahead.
I said it, that sounds good to me.
Okay. All right, Steve, does that sound okay?
Sure.
All right. So whoever has a Q&A, a question, or Steve wants to talk about news, or,
Carol's got a question.
I do.
all right.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got a new iPhone SE. And to replace the current one that I have is an iPhone 6. And I'm wondering what I need to do first. I mean, since I actually have the box with the phone in it now. So I know I need to, there's like a SIM card, a nano SIM card in it. And then I also have to transfer all my data over, which I'm going to do by restoring from the
Yeah.
backup that I did.
So first, you want to make sure your backup is current.
Yeah.
But
So I just did a backup.
Yeah, you can also transfer from phone to phone, and that's sometimes quicker if you don't have very fast Wi-Fi download.
I don't know. I don't know if it'll be faster to do phone to phone. But so what do I do first though? Do I actually physically transfer the SIM card since they are the same size apparently? Do I actually do that, or should I take it to AT&T, which is my
No, you don't. You don't
carrier?
have to go there, and it sort of doesn't matter what order you do it in. As soon as you transfer the SIM card, phone calls are going to come to the new phone. So generally, you'd want to wait until after you finish setting up the new phone and copy your data over. Otherwise, you might miss calls and messages because the new phone's not ready yet.
Okay. And I guess I was wondering, like, do SIM cards deteriorate like other?
They can over time, but there's
things?
so little involved in them that
Okay.
it's probably not anything to worry about.
So the only thing that's really in it is what makes it into a phone instead
It's
of
the
all the other
subscriber
things.
information. So it's your contact information with your carrier, and so that has your phone number on it, and so the IMEI number, so they know how to bill you for the phone calls you're making.
Okay.
And usually when the SIM card is failing, it stops making or receiving phone calls or has trouble connecting to cellular data.
She also wondered if the SIM card itself was connected to the type of plan that she had.
Indirectly, in that it has her account information on it.
Yeah.
So that's
So
But I mean-
she can change plans at any point then.
that depends on her carrier and what plan she's on, and if it's in a contract or not.
Well, going to the new phone, does that mean that now is the time for her to switch her plan? And is that forced? And or see, she wants to know, should she keep the new SIM card in where it is and deal with AT&T and have them do whatever it is they're going to do?
They don't need
to
to do
set it up?
anything.
Okay,
Yeah, the
and
carrier
she's
doesn't
also
need to do anything.
concerned. She's also concerned that the newer SIM might be faster than the older one.
There's no speed involved in a SIM. It's just your account information. So the phone knows
Okay.
the phone knows who to bill.
All right, so we can just change the SIM card, and after we've moved all
And
her
then
data, and she's good.
Decide if I want to
Yep.
change plans. And
Yeah,
such.
you have
Okay.
to see what plan you're on now, and if you're in a contract, usually means you can't change plans, or if you're not currently in a contract, then you can see what the other plans are. One of the things, especially with AT&T, is a lot of people were grandfathered into the unlimited data, and
Yeah.
even though you might be paying extra for your plan, having that unlimited data is something a lot of people like to keep.
But it's only unlimited data on the phone, and I don't have, MiFi or anything.
Yeah.
So it doesn't do me much good to have all that unlimited data.
You don't use your phone 20 hours a day like a teenager?
No. So, okay, well, that kind of tells me what to do next. So
I had a question about her phone. If she didn't
Hey, Rick,
put
go
the
ahead.
SIM card in at all, would it still function as though it were like an iPod Touch?
Basically, yeah. It doesn't have any cellular connection, so there's no cell phone number and there's no cellular data.
Do people sometimes do that when they buy an iPhone?
More often, their old iPhone that
Yeah.
they upgrade away from. So you
yeah,
can
I'd figure I'd use the old one for that.
use your old iPhone as an iPod. That's what I did on one of mine. Left it for my podcasts in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it can't make phone calls anymore, it still works as an iPod on Wi-Fi only.
Okay, cool.
Can I
And-
ask a question?
Sure.
Where, Miss Carol, did you get your phone?
I ordered it online from Apple. It was a gift. I had a gift
Oh.
card to buy it. So
Okay,
so that's how we did it.
okay.
Sometimes carriers will have plans. Usually, you buy one get one free in 6 months, which is kind of how they sneakily do it. So if you keep the phone for 6 months, they'll give you a credit for the cost of the phone. So you have to pay up front for both phones, but then eventually you get that credit back against your plan. So it can sometimes pay to look at the different carriers, see what their plans are. I've been hearing really good things about Mint Mobile, owned by Ryan Reynolds. So he's been doing some really interesting TV commercials. $15 a month for unlimited minutes, and I think he's up to 50 gigs of data. And so they use the T-Mobile backend, so it's still a fairly good plan. It depends on how much data you use and how much traveling you do. But yeah,
Okay.
$15 a month, and I think they just increased their data plan for that 15.
Okay, because I too have AT&T like Carol, and I was over there yesterday. And I asked him about a new phone. And in case you all don't know me or remember me, Mr. Hoey does. And I'm from the Flintstone age. And see, she got it. I don't want to spend an arm and a leg and my blood to get a new phone.
You know, because they were talking 4 digits with a comma, and I'm like, I'm not paying that much, you know.
Yeah, that's for the
And
super
I
high-end
still
phone
have,
that has everything on it.
Yeah. Yeah, the SE is kind of a
well,
good deal.
see, what I want is a rotary dial. So if anybody has a rotary dial, that'll still work, because I've got one, but I can't get it. Now you're laughing at me. You know, I'm of the Stone Age. I just a rotary dial phone. I don't order things online. I give money to other people to order online, and then I'll go pick it up at their house, because too much hacking going on. So I guess I'm showing my age or my maturity.
Well, I just found an
I think
article about a
the
space engineer who made his own cell phone with a rotary dial on it.
Say that again.
An engineer made his own cell phone with a rotary dial.
There you go. I need his address and phone number.
Sounds like the perfect guy for you, Jackie.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of the companies will always try to push you to the most expensive phone there is.
Oh yes.
And the iPhone SE is one of the best values at $399. It's basically an iPhone 11 in the smaller screen size. And so it's what is it, 4.2 inches, I think it is. So you don't have a giant phone in your pocket. You don't have the giant cost of the phone. They still do sell the 11 and the 10R that have bigger screens, but they cost more than the SE does.
SE.
Yep, it's special edition.
Okay.
That's the E2.
It's the second edition of the special edition.
Yeah.
Okay. And the reason I'm asking, I make a note, ask a friend of mine if he'll get me one, because like I said, I don't want to spend that kind of money for a phone. And it's an iPhone SE, because I still have my iPhone 4. I have the iPhone 5. I have an iPhone 7 now. So
yeah, the SE is basically the 10. It's the guts of the 11 in a smaller size, like the 5, 6, and 7.
okay.
You might even be able to find a used iPhone 8 for less than a new iPhone SE, but the new iPhone gives you the warranty. It gives you all the latest and greatest technology. You get the better camera on it, so it does everything that a newer phone does, but it's the smaller screen and a much lower price.
How does the
That's
SE compare to the XR?
Much smaller screen size.
Yeah, smaller
Well,
screen size,
yeah.
but better processors.
One camera lens.
There's a compare button on Apple's website, so you can put in different models of phone and see how they compare to each other.
okay.
What was the last SE comparable phone?
It was basically a 6 in the size of a 5.
Oh. I was looking at track phone, because that's where I have mine. So I have the Success Plus, which is now gone. Now they have a 7, but the 8s are gone too. So they have a 7, an SE, and an XR, I think, are the ones they have now.
Yeah, the SE is a 4.7-inch screen, and the 10R is a 6.1-inch screen. The SE's got a faster processor in it, but the 10R has more battery life because it's physically bigger.
Okay.
What's the oldest you would think, like, is there anything about phones when you're like things that older ones do, that anything that the older ones would do that the newer ones wouldn't, that you'd want to get like a 7 or like or an 8 or something, or step up versus getting just the newer one?
Not really. The newer ones are always faster, better processors. The one thing we're seeing now is that the SE it has the Touch ID.
Yes, that's one of the reasons I like it.
Yeah, and the other ones have Face ID, which doesn't work quite as well with wearing masks.
Yes.
But so a lot of people like the SE because it still has the Touch ID.
Let me interrupt just a moment here to say that Lyle has joined us.
All right.
Yep, be
Okay.
careful what you say. I'm here.
Oh,
Just so we know.
all right, I don't see you. Where are you?
I see Bob there twice.
Oh, there you are. Hi, Lyle.
Maybe one is Bob and one is Carol, and they're both signed in as Bob.
Yeah.
He's a clone.
It does that because I send the email to Carol, but it comes, she's using my new MacBook
Laptop.
Pro. And it comes through with my name on it.
You
You know,
can
but
go.
the email was sent to
Can
her.
change it.
You can go into the participant list and change your name.
Carol will have to do that.
Hey, what's this I'm hearing about a ballot being emailed out?
Yeah, there was a ballot in the meeting notice to for the elections.
To vote.
All right, let me look for it.
You have till 8 o'clock. Yeah,
I,
half an hour yet.
I haven't found it yet. Can you give me like a keyword like that? What to search on?
I typed that message right into surveymonkey.com and it came right up.
Yep.
I mean, the email that you sent,
It
like,
would have come from CIDER@mac.com, and it would be virtual meeting, next virtual meeting.
And I just used the link, tapped the link in that email. Never mind what Francesco says. And it went right to the ballot.
Yeah.
no, I'm still
too.
trying to find the email.
It's from
Yeah,
Sunday.
when I logged in, I hit that by accident, and that came up first before I could log in.
I can paste it into the chat window here. We're sort of using everyone on the honor system that they
Oh, that's from
aren't
February.
that they are a member if they vote.
Okay, so you're using a SurveyMonkey ballot here, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh crap! I forgot to change the subject line, so it says February 10th, not March 10th.
Yeah, that was why I wasn't
That's,
finding it.
that's
But
why I was getting
in the
confused.
body of the message, it all says March. I just forgot to change the subject. I thought I was doing better by replicating the last message instead of doing the whole message from scratch, but I guess not.
So we can vote anytime up until break,
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay.
So far, we have 11 votes.
I'm still not. I don't know if I got it because
There's no vice president for programming.
That's correct.
No.
Your membership has expired, so you wouldn't have gotten it.
Uh-oh.
You're caught.
I didn't notice that. Bob and Carol's too. I didn't notice that they weren't on the list.
Okay. Any other questions? And we could maybe go into Lyle.
One quick note is that Steve just sent out the SurveyMonkey link in the chat, and I just clicked on it and it goes to the ballot. So in other words, even if you haven't paid your membership yet, but I'm sure you will soon, you can vote.
Okay.
All right.
Gosh, I wish I was doing here.
All right. So Lyle, are you ready?
I'm ready when you're ready.
Okay,
Alrighty.
so I guess we can,
You-
I guess we're
First-
ready to go.
First of
Kevin?
all, it's important. Can you see the T-shirt?
No, I
No.
can't see you.
Yeah,
Your microphone's
Yes.
right in the middle.
Yeah.
Power Mac G4.
Power
Cute,
Mac, yes.
Power Mac
Cute.
G4.
Four.
cute.
I've got one in the basement.
Is it,
Okay,
a step,
I,
is it a step stool?
It's not the power it used to be, is it?
No, I even got the matching transparent monitor for it.
Ooh. Well, let's see if I can get the right screen shared here.
Yep, I enabled sharing. Yep, okay.
all right.
Okay, so basically, I'm going to walk through a few things here, and I don't necessarily see everyone, so feel free to jump in with questions, or if you're too shy, I'm sure Shirley or someone will help flag me down here to know you got a question, so ask them as they come up. Basically, I'm going to touch base with, first of all, just a few slides to help remind everyone, and maybe for those that aren't aware of what the tax aid program is through AARP. We'll walk through some of the changes this year to the tax code. Most of those are all COVID related, reaching into various parts of the tax code and tweaking things so that Congress could feel good about what they did, but while also making it almost impossible to prepare returns. And then finally, we'll walk through how we're actually preparing returns this year. Obviously, COVID-19 with social distancing requires us to approach this in a very different way. So I thought the title was appropriate of 2021, the year we're in. We always bounce back and forth. It's tax year 2020, but obviously we're in 2021. And this is definitely the year from H. So a little bit of what tax aid is. AARP Foundation Tax Aid is the nation's largest income tax preparation service. And just so you're aware, AARP Foundation is like the nonprofit arm of AARP. So they actually have tendrils that reach in several different directions. The foundation provides a lot of programs for seniors. They provide driver's ed, a whole plethora of courses that are available through them to help the base. Foundation has been, the tax aid program has been involved since '68. Some of the older volunteers are now starting to retire, if you will, from tax aid, but many of them started with, I would say pencil and paper, but they actually used to use, remember when you had erasable ink pens? Some of us will remember those. And that's what they used to prepare with, because for a period of time, they'd prepare it, and when you did a quality review, if there was an error, you could erase it, fix it, and everything was good. But some number of hours later, you couldn't erase it anymore. So for tax returns, that was kind of important, that once you got finished, it was going to be a permanent record. So it's been around for quite a few years. The funding comes from several places. It comes from within AARP. The IRS actually is a major funder of our operation. You may think, no, wait a minute, the IRS, they're the ones we're doing taxes for. Well, they recognize, forgive my French, but the big turd that Congress has given them in terms of a tax code. They know many people would be unable to file their taxes. It's so complicated that they just can't figure it out. So they fund programs like, they help fund programs like tax aid and VITA program, the cash program, to allow people to get their returns finished and filed. We're in all the states. Everything we do now is online. When I first started with the program back 10 years ago, they had just transitioned a few years earlier into computers. So everything was prepared on the computer and then would be sent in. Now everything we do is online. Essentially we're on Chromebooks, and I'll speak to that in a little bit. But everything we do is essentially, those just become terminals. Software we use is online. All the data is online and stored in quote unquote secure clouds until they get hacked. So we have no sensitive data that we retain on any of our equipment and any of our files. We don't hold any paper. I can tell you that the legal staff at AARP TaxAid is anal retentive on making sure they have no liability in that area. They work very hard to make sure everything is secure and safe. Back 2 years ago, these give you a sense of the breadth of the program, right? Over 35,000 volunteers, over 1.5 million federal returns that were filed, a lot of sites. Within this part of New York State, we have, in the neighborhood of probably, on a normal year, we have 60 to 70 sites. And when I say this part of New York State, what they do is they look at both geographic area and population, and then they split some states into what they call split states. We are NY4, so New York actually has 4 different split states. Total is 50, or excuse me, a total of 70 split states in our 50 states within the United States. And within this, we are like Syracuse to Buffalo, from the lake to the Pennsylvania border, to give you a sense of our geographic area. We have, as I said, 60 to 70 sites, and we have probably, I think the last time I saw it, between 500 and 600 volunteers who are preparing taxes for people. No, that's in our split state. So that's from Syracuse to Buffalo, the whole area. I won't bore you with any of these details, but like any other organization, my previous role up until this year has been down here, what was called technology specialist. Basically, I was the key technical person for our split state. That involved understanding the software, installation, setup, configuration. It involved the hardware in terms of networks, routers, getting computers set up. Back in the lovely days of PCs, that was always fun when we spent a lot of time re-imaging them. Then they updated the operating systems from a lot of vendors that if you went to re-image it and they didn't see their code in it, they were going to block you from re-imaging. So then you had to find a workaround. So had a lot of fun with that. We're now on Chromebooks. The main driver, remember I said a moment ago, very sensitive to security, to the privacy, making sure that our clients' information is secure. Chromebooks are all managed nationally. So from the national level, they provide the configuration of the Chromebook, and at least once a year, using the Chromebook, we have Google accounts, and we get Google emails, email addresses, which is our volunteer number at aarpfoundation.org. And once a year, they completely wipe all of those accounts. And when I say they wipe them, I mean, there ain't nothing left. If we've been saving files, if we've been saving address lists in Google Mail and any of the rest of that that's associated with that account, it all gets wiped out. So we have to save it. They'll usually give us an opportunity just before the wipe to save offline. But again, emphasis is on security. I mentioned I have been a technology specialist. I did one of those things of being silly, and I'm currently the state coordinator for NY4. So I got a good group, and things are going pretty well for us. We're going to see how things go in the next couple of years here. More and more, this is where we're headed for how we get to the internet. As we went online, many sites allowed us to take an Ethernet cable, and we would find a jack to plug into for our router. We always use our own network, meaning our router, our security protocols, our passwords, so we're not open to the public. Pretty sensitive to that. More and more sites now, as Wi-Fi becomes more and more available and something is provided everywhere. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, my main site is in Chilai. And I went in a couple of weeks ahead of time, which is always advisable before the tax season starts. And they said, "Oh, we've done you a great favor. You won't be able to plug in over there anymore, but you don't have to. You can use our Wi-Fi." And their Wi-Fi, a number of other people have the password, therefore not secure, therefore not acceptable. WISP, if you're not familiar with it, if you have a router with the WISP capability, essentially our router connects to the local network using their Wi-Fi. But now we have our own security protocols. This sets up our network. Anything coming out of this is basically encrypted. So this allows us to continue to be safe and allows us to easily connect. When I say easily, WISP still sometimes has idiosyncrasies. There'll be times that it doesn't work and it takes a little bit of voodoo magic to get it going. But overall, this equipment keeps getting better every year. And then in many cases, we don't have anything connected to it. We've gone to printers that are wireless printers, and our Chromebooks are obviously wireless. That's what they were invented for, was not being connected to anything. So more and more, this is what we do on site in terms of the equipment that we're using. So we're going to get into some tax law changes. And in some cases, it was boy, I'm glad that wasn't any worse than that. And in other cases, it's like, wait a minute, they did what? And what's that going to do to us? We're not going to train you to become an expert in tax law, but I will give you a heads up of some areas. If some of these impact your tax situation, then it's an area you may want to dig more, or make sure that you're working with a tax professional that knows what they're doing and how to navigate their way through this. And as you can see, a whole bunch of, for the most part, a bunch of littles, although depending on your tax situation, you may find that you have a significant impact out of one of them. The Secure Act, this is sort of the list of things that were under that. Don't know how many are familiar with qualified charitable distributions. What that is, charitable distributions, the qualified, allow you to move money from an IRA or a 401k, that genre. You can move it from there directly to a charity. When you do that, it does not show up in income. So this is not like taking the withdrawal and then you donate it to the charity. In that case, it shows up as income. It shows up as part of your adjusted gross. That ends up being part of the calculation of how much of your Social Security is going to become taxable. Doing it that way of taking it as income causes a whole bunch of things to go the wrong direction for you. If you do it as a qualified charitable distribution, going directly from your account to the charity, that helps you meet your required minimum distribution, and it has no effect on your income level. So it doesn't raise the bar if you are itemizing in terms of medical. Like I said, it doesn't raise your total income for the calculation of Social Security. So if you're of an age of at least 70 and a half, you can use the qualified charitable distributions to support your local charities, while also ensuring that you get the maximum benefit for that as it relates to your taxes. One of the changes was the minimum age for this distribution. That was 70 and a half. So it used to be the year in which you turned 70 and a half, you had to start taking that minimum required distribution. Now it's the year you turn 72. Also, they allowed a skip year. In 2020, people were not required to take that required minimum distribution. One of the reasons in particular was when the stock market took that huge dip, the concern was that's a terrible time to have to take money out of your investments you're depending on for retirement. You don't want to take money out when it's low. So although it bounced back pretty quick, at the time they passed this, that wasn't obvious. So they wanted to protect people. So there was no required distribution in 2020. If you took one, you could put it back, but it's too late now. I think you had until like the end of August or September, somewhere in there was the latest that you could put the money back in there. But again, now going forward, that kicks in at 72. And if you're wondering how do they determine that, they go through some complex calculations with the life expectancy tables. They look at the money. The idea is every year, the percentage that you draw, they look at the balance at the end of the previous year, and then you have to take a certain percentage of that, and that percentage goes up every year because they want you to continue to eat into that so that it doesn't all bypass being taxed in terms of how that works. Inherited IRAs, I'm looking to see if, yeah, I'm going to touch that in just a moment. The rest of that isn't quite as significant. Stretch IRAs are curtailed. What that means is it used to be that if when the parents died and they left their IRA to their children might have been 20, 30 years younger, and those who inherited it could now take that IRA spread out over their intended lifetime. So that may mean that they had 30, 40 years based on tables over which to take it. No more. Now they have to take the whole thing within 10 years. Now, the downside of that is, let's say that somebody is leaving someone $400,000. That means now every year, all of a sudden, they're getting $40,000 of additional income, raises them to higher tax brackets, more of what the parents intended to go to their children to help them in their later years, ends up going to taxes instead of where they intended. So a lot of people were very unhappy with this, but it's there, and I haven't heard any indications that that's going to be changed anytime in the near future. There are exceptions. It doesn't apply to a spouse. If the person receiving it is within 10 years of age and chronically ill children. So there's always exceptions to just about everything they do. But that was one significant change that they made there. This was something that I don't remember seeing in the past. Families First Act. In the past, if you were self-employed, well, you're self-employed. Guess what that meant if you were sick? Well, you were sick. Nobody was working. You didn't get any tax breaks for that, just less income coming in. With COVID-19, now there's an opportunity that if that was the cause of the sick leave, then you will get a tax break for that. Tax credit factors back in. Same way, if you had those in the family that you had to take care of so you couldn't work. Again, family leave, there's a way to get a credit within the tax code for that to help bridge that gap, to help the pain be a little bit less. CARES Act. They do love these acronyms, don't they? And please don't ask me what they all stand for. I'd have to Google it, and you can do that as well as I can. These are the two biggies that just about everybody received. The EIP was the one we received. Most people got it in April, May timeframe. That was $1,200 per person, $500 per dependent that was 17 or under. Recovery rebate credit is what people received in January. And again, that one was similar, except that it was $600 per person and $600 per each dependent, again, with that same limitation, 17 and under. I am not up on the latest bill. Matter of fact, I didn't hear today. House was expected to pass that this morning, and Biden probably won't take too long to sign that into law with the next round of checks that are being sent out. But a lot of details to follow on that. Payroll protection program. This one applied primarily, it certainly helped a lot of people and helped companies or businesses help their employees. I can tell you as an example, our church took advantage of this. When that hit, obviously we stopped our services. When you're not having services, you're not having an adult choir. Nobody's in the building. You don't really need somebody to clean it every week. So, we were looking at probably losing income and saying, how are we going to handle payroll? This allowed us to apply for what was called a loan. But as long as we met all the criteria, which was showing of, yep, here's what our payroll was running, here's where the money went from the loan, then the loans are fully forgiven. So a number of companies were able to take advantage of this. The net result being it helped people stay fully employed longer instead of losing their jobs and going to unemployment or running out of unemployment. So it offered quite a bit of good. Payroll tax deferral for self-employed. I'm not sure how many people taken advantage of this. It's okay, I'm not going to pay my self-employment tax now in terms of Social Security and FICA, but it's going to come payable later. Either it could be spread out as much as over 3 years in terms of paying that back. Not sure how many people actually took advantage of that. Some retirement funds could be tapped again based on COVID situation. As I mentioned earlier, there was a waiver of the required minimum distributions in 2020. This is one that several people are taking advantage of. If you're using the standard deduction in the past, you took the standard deduction. Discussion over. Doesn't matter how much charitable you had or anything else, that was part of standard. This year, even if you took standard deduction, you could take a $300 above the line deduction for cash donations to charities. Not clothes, not other goods, but for cash donations, you could take up to $300 off that to lower your adjusted gross and therefore lower your taxable income. They changed the limit on cash donations. Qualified medical, I'm going to touch here in just a second. Matter of fact, it's the next slide. HSAs in the past have pretty much mirrored the guidelines of what you could deduct if you were doing itemized deductions as part of your medical expenses. They've sort of decoupled those with this in that there used to be the requirement that the medicine or drug be prescribed. In other words, if it wasn't a prescription drug you were taking, then you could not use your HSA funds to cover those medical expenses. This year, with this change, over-the-counter products and medications are now, you can use HSA funds to help fund those and again, help you through this period that might be a drought based on the impact COVID has had on your overall financial situation. Note that this applied to amounts paid after December 31st, in other words, starting in 2020. So you couldn't go back retroactively and take expenses you had in 2019 and reimburse yourself from the HSA. That this didn't reach back that far. So they did open the category in terms of what's available for that. This is more of something on our side of it. Every year, the volunteers who are preparing taxes as part of the tax aid program, we need to go through training and certification. There are tests that we need to take. HSA used to be a separate certification. Never made sense to me because frankly, HSA is an easy thing to handle as part of the tax code. And now that's part of our regular certification, no longer separate. More provisions coming through here. The recovery rebate credit, we see more of that coming. That's what's in that bill that's being passed at the $1,400. They have some more grants that are getting lined up. All of this, we're going to continue to see more details over the next few days and weeks, I'm sure, in terms of how that's going to be rolled out and the impact it has. They also, remember when I talked about complexity and some of this stuff boggles the mind, but they now allow a look back for earned income credit. If it turns out that because of the impact of COVID-19 on you in 2020, if that artificially, like you ended up with no income, virtually no income, but in 2019, you were in a sweet spot for getting the earned income credit, you can do a look back to 2019 and get more income credit. Again, I love the complexity. If you didn't have computers for some of this, I don't know how you'd work your way through it. These are some of the other changes made. They're doing another round of the payroll protection plan loans. These are more stringent in terms of the impact that the pandemic has had on your payroll. So that's a more difficult one to qualify for, but those funds are being made available. And some of the provisions that are out there that they used to update every year have now been made permanent or for various years, and I'll touch those in a moment. One of the favorite ones we used to have was that the qualified donations that could be made to charity that bypass going through your income, they never used to approve that until somewhere in the 4th week in December. It's like they would do it every year, but from a tax planning, the software companies and everything, it wasn't valid yet. And yet, you know, companies are obviously trying to get that software written and everything out ahead of time. So at least this helps that situation some. Here's one of the things made permanent. Those that were impacted by this may remember that we went through several years where the threshold to be able to start using medical expenses as deductions and an itemized deduction were at 10%. That threshold is now back to the 7.5% where it used to be for a long time. And at least now it's considered permanent. Like everything else in life, permanent is until it changes. Tuition and fees deduction is repealed. That's one of the perks that was in there. Lifeline Learning Tenant does have credit, does have increased income limits, as does the American Opportunity Credit. Some inflation adjustments. Not going to obviously spend any time on these, but several items within the code are geared to inflation so that they automatically step up so that they don't sort of age out. One of the things that tends to never change, standard mileage rates. That charitable mileage has been 14 cents a mile for charitable since I can remember. I think they figured maybe they're giving enough to charity as it is in terms of what is written in the tax code. So they're not worried about raising that. These are the rates for 2020. I don't remember the numbers for 2021. I do know business mileage is dropping. I may have heard 56 cents. Like I said, I don't remember what the number is, but I know this will be less for 2020. It was 57 and a half for, excuse me, for 2021. I know it's dropping. For 2020, it was the 57 and a half. For those who may be receiving the AARP magazine, and also there's like a newspaper thing that comes out. This was in the last one. I'm not going to actually have you try to read from this, but this was actually a good overview of some of the models we're using this year for tax preparation. Before I dig deeper into this, any particular questions people have in terms of the tax code changes?
Yes, I have one, Lyle.
Yes.
And that would be concerning, let me just put this, for the above the line charitable contributions for 2021. Is
Yes.
that going to 600?
I have not heard.
Because
What
I
you're
heard
saying
that,
is you're thinking that might be part of this new bill that was just passed?
no, I heard that originally, it's, I think with an older bill that this year it was 300. And for next year it's 600. That's
Yep. I am unable to confirm that. Not something I've heard.
okay.
There was discussion at one point of, gee, should married filing joint get 300 per person versus 300 per return? But everything I've heard, it's still 300 per return. I haven't heard about the 6.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So how do we do taxes? The way we've always been doing it is basically that when the client would come in, we have a booklet. The booklet contains a few things. Up front, it's, their name, address, filing situation. Do they have a spouse who was deceased recently? Are they divorced? Do they have people living with them? Do they have dependents? What types of income do they have? What do they expect to think they have for deductions? What are special situations, as well as demographic information and some other consents, if you will, for how their data is used. So they would come in, we would hand them that, have them sit down, they'd work on getting that filled out. We would sort through their paperwork, sort of get that in order. And then when one of our preparers was available, they'd go over to a table, sit across from them. The preparer prepares the return while they're sitting there. We then get it quality reviewed, either by having the client go to someone else or by having a different person sit in that chair, print out their return, review it, and then they go home. That's the way we've been doing taxes, at least in the last 11 years that I've been part of the program. This year, obviously with COVID-19, it's a different ballgame. What we're doing in most places is when they set up the appointment, we tell them they have to come in and pick up a packet. That packet gives them the instructions of what they need to do. It has that booklet. So they're not going to be sitting in an enclosed space, elbow to elbow with everybody else filling it out. Instead, it allows us to maintain social distancing because they're going to fill that out at home, minimize the amount of time they're going to have with us on site. It also helps them to say, you know, make sure you're checking this to have your paperwork. Please take everything out of the envelopes. Some people have trouble reading. I can assure you a lot come in where everything's still all in the envelope, stuffed in a bigger envelope. But in most cases, it's a big help to us now. So we're not doing that traditional in person because way too much FaceTime, way too many people would be in an enclosed space to be considered safe, and it would not satisfy the current guidelines. So one of these is what we call a modified in-person. What this does is takes advantage of that fact that I just mentioned. We have them pick up the packets ahead of time. So when they come in, they've already done a fair amount of the work. We also have, I was actually fairly impressed, AARP provided us with plexiglass shields. So these are it's like a trifold shield with a bypass underneath it. Again, provides pretty good protection, along with masks where they're needed, sanitizing supplies and so on. So again, they've done, I think, a pretty good job of supporting us from that perspective. When the client comes in, we emphasize to them, don't come in too early. If your appointment is at 12:15, you can come in at 10 after 12. Don't come in at 12. And I can tell you at Riga, where we are open and doing taxes, that a number of times we tell people, back to your car, because again, we need to maintain the safety for the volunteers and for the other clients that are already coming in. When they come in for their appointment, we sit down. Essentially, we go through quickly to confirm the paperwork they brought. We put that in the order we're going to want it to prepare the return. We have a list of questions that we're going to ask that normally we would just ask them sitting across the table. It took at least 1 week to realize all the questions we weren't asking that we needed to. Things like, for New York State, what's your school district? Never worried about that in the early screening before, because if the client's across the table from you, when you get to it, an easy question to answer. Not so easy when you'd have to pick up a telephone to call them. So we try to get as many details as we can in that initial visit. Usually takes us about 15 minutes. Once we have all of that in place and those organized, we have the person go sit in a socially isolated area. We then take that paperwork to people who are scanning. They scan all that paperwork in. It goes into a secure Google account, and I'll give some more of those details shortly. But what that account does is that allows us to limit how many people have access to the information. For scanning, we're currently using 2 different scanners. One is an Epson E60. It's actually a small little device, single page feed. When you set the paper in it, it sort of jogs to tell you it's got it. You press a button, goes through pretty quick, and those have been working pretty well. The other one is a Brother 1700. That's a little bit bigger machine. It has an auto feed on it, and it scans both sides simultaneously. Now, that works nice when you get some of the brokerage statements where we get a lot of pages and the paper is in good shape. On the other hand, when the paper isn't in good shape, or you get some odd sizes, you can't necessarily just throw them in the auto feeder, or it'll grab 2 at once. And I can tell you the post-scan software that we have to use is terrible. So you can't just go in and pick and choose. Once we get through a scan operation, we can't just append another one to it. We actually have to create another scan file. So it's not quite as trivial as setting the stack in a scanner, but we scan all that up so it's going to be available for the preparers. Once they're done, all the paperwork goes back to the client. Again, we don't hold on to any paperwork. Typically, the client's visit is going to be somewhere in that 25, 30 minutes between the intake, the scanning. They go home with their paperwork. All of the returns get prepared from home. Some people do that using a split screen. Some do that using a secondary monitor. They do that working from those scanned files, and that's part of the importance now of how we organize it. We try to organize all of that documentation in the order it's going to go into the software. So that's a help from that perspective. It gets quality reviewed. When it's ready to be filed, we have the client come back in. We print it out, do a quick review so they understand their return, have them sign permission papers, and they're done. That second visit is 5 to 10 minutes. So again, minimizing face time and makes the whole process go pretty quick. We do have some others. Basically, the one I just described is what most of our sites are doing. This one goes for lower contact, and this option, basically the tax filers will visit the site. They'll just have documents scanned, but then that interaction, instead of being there for that 15 minutes, is going to be done via phone calls and or Google Meet, a video chat, to try and answer the questions. I can tell you most of our clients are not going to be using Google Meet. Some of them have enough trouble with the phone. So in many cases, this doesn't work, but in some areas, this works very well for the approach to support clients. This one is for those who are savvy enough to scan their own documents. These can be mailed in. Essentially, you get the connection, you get an address to email them to. Same deal of the return being prepared virtually, and same deal with interactions being via Google Meet. And we have a way to securely return the finished return. So there's essentially, as it says, contact free. Again, some areas of the country I think are using this. Our technology levels and savviness we have, that's not something that we're doing here. Finally, self-preparation. This one actually is a case where the people may be indeed, there is free software available for certain levels of income. They may be preparing it on their own, but they may need some help. They don't understand what this form is. They don't understand how this is supposed to be entered. And they can get line by line help and advice over the phone while they're filling out their forms. I'm just going to walk through this fairly quick. This is what we call our traditional scan. And these are the steps that are taken to help ensure that the documents are kept safe and that they're not going to get hacked through the process. Intake interview is what I described. They come in, they've already filled out their packet. We get everything in order. We pass those to the person doing the scanning. When they scan this, these files are going into a folder that is located on their Chromebook. Matter of fact, this would be what the screen would look like on the Chromebook. This is the person doing the scans. Within their My Files and Downloads, we have a TSO scans folder. The individual client scans created by that scanner would end up being put in here. The next thing the scanner is going to do is move those files from their Chromebook up into the secure Google account that's being used for the tax preparation. This is managed by what we call, again, here these acronyms, the Site Virtual Return Coordinator. To move those, again, this is, actually, I can go back to this one. Here is the file, which is called, in our case, RIGA. So the person doing the scanning at the end of the day will take all of their individual files. They will move them into this folder, which is on a shared drive. This is located in the account of that virtual return coordinator. The rights to view what's in this essentially is everyone who needs to upload scans. So it's limited to the people who are uploading scans to it. At this point, that virtual return coordinator, the first thing he's going to do is they move the files again. Sort of like trying to move it so nobody can keep up with it. The whole purpose of it is, as they move the files from here up into the preparation teams, while it's down here, everybody that did the scanning can still see those files. Once they move them, the person who did the scans can no longer see that confidential client data. So a lot of focus here on maintaining confidentiality and security. In this case, you'll see that there are 3 teams set up. Each of these have 3 or 4 people in them. So only those 3 or 4 people have access to these files to do the preparation and to do the quality review on them. So as noted, that each file gets shared with a prep team. They prepare the return. They do the quality review on it. Once the return is ready to go, we have the client come back, we print it out, they sign a form, which is called an 8879. Basically, that form gives us permission to e-file, and they accept responsibility for the return. We prepared it with what they gave us. We're volunteers, so we're not legally liable for that return as long as we stay within the scope of our training. The tax return gets e-filed. Once that's accepted, we permanently delete those files from the SVRC drive. We hold on to it till we know that both returns are accepted by the IRS and by New York State, but then their data is completely wiped out of our system. And this was just the one showing you how we move those. It's this year, because of reduced sites and reduced capacity, I think everything within the Rochester area is pretty much booked. This would be the email address, or the link you can go to find all the local sites. Essentially, you put in, like I put in my zip code. I said, what are the sites within 20 miles? And this showed all the sites that would be within 20 miles if I were trying to come to AARP Tax Aid to get my taxes done. And that's it for anyone who's still awake. No, a little bit of a fire hose there, but as I said, in some parts it was more an awareness so that if it was an area of concern, you'd at least know some questions to ask. And I agree. I have actually, Steve, pushed back on them several times when from the AARP side, they say, well, this is an IRS requirement. As an example, they say the IRS requirement is actually that they have to purge our Chromebooks twice a year. To which we say, number one, wait a minute, what good is it to purge it twice a year? If you purge it in May, it's at the end of the tax season, no reason to purge it again in October. We haven't done anything. But to your point, when everybody transitioned from Windows 7 to Windows 10, because 7 was no longer secured, my sister-in-law works for the IRS, and they kept using Windows 7 for, I think, another year or two before the transition. So yes, your observation is correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Lyle?
I just want to say that I'm not sure which I'm more impressed with, Lyle's presentation or the actual work that he and his comrades are doing in this program. It's very impressive. Thank you, Lyle.
No, and thank you. And I can tell you that there are those clients that come in that I'll be honest, they bring tears to our eyes just because in many cases, I mean, we try to focus on obviously lower income. We try to focus on the elderly who really don't have a clue with this stuff. And when we go through, and especially you manage to have them getting a refund they weren't expecting, I mean, that just they just light up like it's Christmas. So yeah, it's a very rewarding, and thank you.
So Lyle, I've got a quick question. You were talking about the stimulus checks, and there was the one that was a tax credit. Could you explain really what the difference is? And I take it that neither of those is taxable as income?
That's correct. The two, what we just generically call them the stimulus payments. So those were the 1,200 and the 600. Those were not taxable. When we fill out the return, what we do, and actually, I don't need to share anymore. When we do the return, we do enter those stimulus payments. And the reason is that goes through and the IRS processes it. Let's say that somebody truly did not receive that $1,200 in April, but they were fully qualified. They should have received it. Then that means that ends up being a $1,200 refund that they will be getting from the IRS when that return is processed. So that's why we put those in. There were some credits, the ones you may be referring to were the ones for self-employment. And what those deal with is to recognize that boy, someone in self-employment is already struggling enough. COVID in many cases limited what they could do. Now, if they have either directly a COVID illness or because of family, corporations can provide family leave. If it's your own business, now you're in trouble. As you file, then that will generate some tax credits. That's an area that we rarely do many Schedule Cs, so we don't get very deep into it. I can't really go into more details from personal knowledge, but those credits are there for that reason.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Lyle, I actually looked up the AARP site about the above the line donations for
Yes.
2021. And it is $300 for individuals and $600 for married couples.
Okay. Yeah, I knew there had been discussion of it. At the moment, since we have our hands full with 20, I don't have been looking forward, but thank you. That's good information.
Has anybody out there used AARP tax aid? I know I did this year, and Lyle did my tax for me. So I appreciate that.
Walk in the door. Right, and I'll be honest, for many of us who volunteer there, we don't like that. The official stance from AARP is it is open to all, and I think that part of that is driven, remember I said part of that funding comes from the grants that they can get. And so some of the grants say, well, you can't restrict it based on this, or you can't restrict it based on that. I can tell you that when we have people coming in who have 6-digit incomes, we will have the conversation trying to very kindly ask them to go to a paid preparer the next year to help them understand that we're there trying to help the elderly and those with low income. And this person is taking a slot where we could have helped someone else. The sites I've had the last 2-3 years now, we have always been maxed out. All of our appointments have been used. And so that means that someone who does have that $100,000, $120,000, $150,000 household income is taking a slot away from someone who may only have 35,000, and that includes their Social Security, and they don't have a way to get their taxes done. And I've been amazed that the people who come in that the year before may have gone to Jackson Hewitt, they may have gone to other of the big names out there, and what they've had to pay to get their taxes done is just almost seems like a sin. Not unusual, $150, $175, $200 for what we look at as a very simple return with, a little interest, maybe some dividends, your pension, Social Security. That doesn't feel like that ought to take $150 to get your return done. Oh, by the way, we find errors in those quite often too.
Do you get any sense of feedback, word of mouth, from people who come to you who have previously tried using the free electronic filing services provided through the New York State site? I've been using this for a few years because I don't have a financial life. And so it's dirt simple, but
yeah, have not had anyone tell us, that, gee, they used it or they had trouble with it. Typically, the people we have aren't computer savvy enough to try using things. We do have some that come in that have used TurboTax. And in some of those cases, it's because their financial circumstances changed. So they basically changed and they weren't comfortable. And then they found out that they could come to us and get it done for free. It's more comfortable. They're no longer nervous about, are they going to get it right? Are they going to hit the wrong thing? And so they end up coming to us instead of doing it themselves on something like TurboTax.
That makes, especially in terms of people who are not familiar with doing stuff like that on a computer.
Oh,
Thank
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
Lyle, what are the qualifications to become a volunteer?
Really, the desire to help people, to become a counselor in preparing the taxes, obviously having some sense of handling numbers. I mean, obviously we don't need to do a lot of math because you're just entering numbers. And we have a fairly extensive training program that goes through the tax law to help you understand. And again, we don't have to become the experts in all the details in the tax law. We need to know enough in terms of the paperwork coming in to understand what it means and how we interact with the software. And ultimately, when the answer pops out the other end of the software, does it make sense? And we have a fairly robust training program to help new volunteers get up to speed for that and work through it. So it's really being comfortable with computers, being comfortable working with the numbers in terms of the entry, and enjoying working with people.
How do you apply?
If you put in your search engine AARP tax aid, that'll take you essentially on the AARP website, and you're looking at volunteer opportunities. That'll take you down to tax aid.
Okay, thank you.
Steve just put something funny in the chat. I think it's from Steve. And the gist of it is that, you know, we have to pay taxes, but the IRS won't tell us how much we have to pay. We have to figure that out. And then if we get it wrong, we go to jail. And what this brought to mind was whether anybody, especially Lyle, has heard any further rumors about the proposal for, you know, simple people with simple returns like mine, that the IRS would figure it out, send you out a postcard saying, this is what we got, yada, yada. Is this okay? And you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Levied, yeah.
Well,
I believe.
Right.
Ex-lawyers too.
There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, if you looked at it, what an upheaval it would have in our economy if they just went to a flat tax. Think of how many people that would put out of work. I mean, and that goes from corporations all the way down to people preparing taxes. A lot of infrastructure in this country is devoted to taxes, and I don't think it's just because TurboTax and H&R Block want to continue charging $200 a client. If you look at our tax code, it's not just taxes. It is a welfare system built into it. Look at the child credits, child care. Look at the earned income credits. I mean, the list goes on, and that's where the complexity comes in, because it isn't just the simple returns. If all you're doing is working with a W-2, and you have you know, yourself and your wife, whatever, that's pretty simple to figure out. When you start getting into all of the tax dodges that are built into the code and all the extra forms, now it's no longer that simple calculation. And if they got away from that complexity, we'd be a lot more productive country.
Lyle,
Yes.
have you ever attempted to help someone whose taxes had been filed by somebody incorrect, or well, somebody illegally other than them? It's such a
when you say
scary.
illegal, I mean, we've certainly helped clients who have come in and we look at their previous year return and it was done wrong.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
we have helped them in terms of filing an amended return because it was done wrong and it cost them, and it's not unusual that we would find it several $100s. You know, we'll have one or two of those a year that we find where it was done wrong, and we will do what we can to help them. We rarely find someone who comes in has true identity theft. Good news is that's actually very rare from that perspective.
And you would learn that when you try to file and it gets rejected?
Exactly. Yes.
Wow.
When we go to e-file, there are certain things that will cause that to bounce. And when I say bounce, I'm talking about within 60 seconds. When we go to e-file, if it's a social security number that already has something in the system with it, if we got their birthday wrong, there are 2, 3 things. Those two are up close to the top of the list that man, that'd bounce so fast that we can hardly get off the computer before we have the reject in front of us.
Thank you.
Quite often it may be a typo, may have been a misunderstanding somewhere. Probably most of those, believe it or not, come from families that unfortunately have broken up. The parents agreed on, okay, you can take Johnny as a dependent this year. And when they go to take Johnny as a dependent, turns out the other parent went ahead and already filed and took him anyway. And so then and again, we've got a trifold with all the details of matter of fact, the toughest part, Ken, to your earlier question of what do you need to become certified, I had always done my own taxes. Doing the taxes is easy. The toughest part, but the good news is we have trifolds and now we have electronic tools that help us figure this out. But how do you define a dependent? You know, okay, is it a child? Is it adopted? Is it a dependent relative? And what's their income level? And can someone else claim them? And there's a whole decision tree you get down through. The good news is we have it and it's pretty easy to go down through. But that was the toughest part, was figuring out those details. And in some cases where there had been an agreement who was going to take it, the other person did, this return bounces, we go through it. And if they really were entitled to take the deduction, we would say paper file, because the IRS will then sort it out. We can't electronically file because the Social Security number is in there, but a paper, there's nothing to reject a piece of paper. And when that comes in and the IRS sees the conflict in their system, now they start looking at who's legitimately allowed to take this deduction, and they get it sorted out.
Wow.
Now,
thank you.
Yep, and just I think Steve's earlier question, the other thing that does limit is I mentioned the word scope before. And this also comes back a little bit to Ken's question. We are trained in certain areas. There are other areas that we are not trained in. So as an example, if a K1 comes in and all it's got is the basic interest and that kind of stuff, absolutely, we're qualified to do that. We enter it and go. If this is a K1 that comes in, that maybe it's from a tax credit type of investment, like low-income housing that generates tax credit, that would be out of scope for us. We're not trained to that level of detail. Likewise, if a business, we can do Schedule Cs, but if someone comes in with a business, we had one earlier this year that with COVID, they were related in selling cosmetics and they had a huge loss. Huge loss on a Schedule C is out of scope. I think part of that is because of the concern with Schedule C and the concern with fraud, that they want a professional preparer working with that. So if it's a loss on that, we don't touch it. Likewise, if a business is carrying inventory, that's another thing that's out of scope. So there are certain things that are beyond the scope of our training, and we just have to direct them to a paid preparer.
Very good.
Okay, I have a question I just have a question. I have a friend who lives in a rural district. She tried to get an appointment with TaxAid. They were full. She has no computer. And so she can't go online to do her taxes. And do you know of any other, just off the top of your head, maybe tax places that maybe she could use? She tried doing her senior center and they were booked up. So she's sort of like not sure what to do. I told her that she would probably have to go to a real tax accountant,
Right.
and make an appointment, or she could file an extension and then hope that after the deadline is met, that it'll be easier to get an appointment. I mean, does that sound right?
Yes, unfortunately, that's correct. There are some sites like in the city that are called Cash. I think there's one now. They used to have 2 or 3 around the city. But again, those are just about always booked. And the other problem this year that has made this so much more difficult, and I give a very clear example. I've been responsible for sites in Chilai and in Riga. In a typical year, we do probably 200 returns through Riga and about 600 through the Chilai site. Chilai is closed this year. They did not consider it safe with COVID-19. They did not want that number of people coming through their facility. So we had no use of their facility. With the model we're using, because basically we're not preparing the return on site, we're just doing the quick interview and scan, I can actually get more people through RIGA than I could in a regular year. But still, I'm going to be lucky to do a total of somewhere between 300 and 400 this year. So I'm only serving less than half of the people we would be able to get to in a normal year. And I know there a lot of sites haven't opened at all across NY4, and I'm sure that's true across the country. So unfortunately, Shirley, there's no good answer because besides that paid preparer. Now, I know some what I'm going to call private paid preparers. I mean, they're licensed, they're certified and everything else, but quite often those one-person businesses will tend to be more economical, will tend to have lower fees than if you go to the H&R Blocks or the Jackson Hewitts. Those firms will quite often bill per piece of paper, and they'll do everything they can to inflate your return so you have a lot of paper in it.
Right. She used to go to one of those before. And then when she got old enough and she found out about the senior center doing it for free, yep, that's where she went. But this year it's different because everybody got booked up and some places were closed. And being that she's not a computer person and has no computer to do, to go online and do it, it's kind of hard.
Right. Ours through TaxAid, we're what's called TCE, Tax Counseling for the Elderly. There's a sister program, VITA, and I know the last two letters are tax assistance. I forget what the first few are. That program, the IRS deals directly with nonprofits, where the nonprofits quite often will provide their own equipment and volunteers for that tax preparation. Like I said, they're a sister organization. They don't have the same level of training and so on we have, but they still do a very good job. And because they don't rely on some of the grants, they can quite often focus on, as an example, no adjusted gross above 40,000 in terms of the people they serve. But again, a statement for this year, there were 4 or 5 of those sites across the southern tier from, all the way across the southern tier that have closed this year. We actually were able to pick up some of those counselors that we're using in the Corning area down there, that we've been able to expand one of our sites. But overall, for being able to provide that tax service and support for people, the opportunity is shrinking. One of the things that I'll throw in as well is even if you're looking and thinking, gee, it sounds good and I'd like to help people, but I'm really not a tax person. There are roles that people fill that are extremely helpful, and they never do any tax preparation. As an example, having someone who's sort of the traffic cop in a normal year of people coming in to say, okay, yep, you had this preparation, you had this appointment, it's this time, here's your paperwork, please sit down over here and get this filled out. When someone's ready, they'll call you over, keep track of who came in, what's the order. This year, I've actually got 3 or 4 people working with us that have never worked with us before. I've got 2 people running the scanners. Guess what? They don't need to know anything about tax law. All they need to do is figure out how to hit the right buttons in the right place when it's all set up in the Chromebook and the scanners to get the documents in. My person who's that SVRC, that Site Virtual Return Coordinator, he's not doing any tax returns. He's monitoring that to make sure when they come in, they get moved, they get assigned to the teams. We have an activity sheet he tracks, and once that return has been accepted and printed out for the client, he goes in and deletes all the files. So these are people that are helping to pick up that part of the load that have never volunteered before. Will I have them next year? I don't know, maybe not, because those roles shrink. But the point is, you don't have to do taxes. Many sites, those roles of coordinating the flow become very valuable to the overall productivity of the site.
I have a quick question.
Shirley,
Okay.
I got a quick question. Does your friend have access to a public library? Because she...
Well, what she ends up doing is she calls me, or she has her sister do any of her online things. And then I look up things for her. Her sister does. Her sister will, do things on the computer if she can to do it. But to do taxes, no. You
So
know, I
she
told her, I
doesn't know how to
said,
use a computer at all, is what you're telling me.
no, she decided she did not want to be computer savvy. And so I've tried to talk her into a mini iPad, something like that, because she's always asking me to go online and look for stuff. And I said, if you just get a basic one, she's computer savvy enough that she would know how to use it. It's just she chooses not to. Let's put it that way.
But then
So
she'd
I
need to,
told her, I said, huh?
then she'd need to pay for internet access.
Right, that's what you would have to do because she has cable and everything, but she's very stubborn. I've tried.
Yeah, that doesn't
But
apply
I
to
told her, I
anybody else
said-
on this call.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Yep.
yeah, that's kind of what I told her. I think she was going to go and try a place near Buffalo to do it because she lives out in the middle of the country in Java Center where there's nothing other than the senior center that she went to. And since they're all booked up and not doing anything, I said that's really the only place she could go because she's not by any big city whatsoever. I mean, Warsaw is probably the biggest city near her, and that's not very big.
Shirley, question for you.
Mhm.
This person, I assume her taxes are not very complicated.
Well, no, I don't think so. She has pretty much what everybody has, you know, a mortgage. She has some investments. She has retirement. That's about it. I mean, she has nothing really that complicated to do. It's just a matter of getting it all
Yeah.
together and sitting down and doing it, you know?
Right.
They don't have paper forms at the post office or anything anymore. That's a problem. You know, you'd have to download all the forms, and then without having a computer, how do you do that? I mean, she could probably get her sister to do it. She may want to figure it out, but I don't think so.
Surely
You know, so I just told her, I said, this year you got to bite the bullet.
Surely,
Yeah.
because I was, I do all my taxes for my family, for the kids and for others.
You want to go to Java Center?
Well,
I-
I mean, she doesn't have email.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, okay.
In fact,
What
I
you
haven't seen
could
her
do,
in a
Shirley,
year.
is you could download the
Pretty much a
forms
year
for
because-
her and then just mail them out to her.
I don't see, the other problem is I don't think she'd want to do them herself. You know, I could do that. I mean, her sister could do that for her and download the forms and everything and then do it. But again, she's going to have to ask her, does she trust her sister to know what she's doing too? That's the other part. You know, so that, to me, that's the easiest part. But then again, my friend is very stubborn, you know, and there are certain things where she just isn't going to do it. You and I would say, what's the problem? But that's just the way she is.
Well, she painted herself
So,
into a corner, so let her deal with it.
Well, I'll talk to her again about it. I said maybe the easiest way again was to file an extension because she does have to pay taxes every year. She never gets a refund. So if she does that, that gives her more time to get to see somebody for free. Maybe the senior center will be open then and they can do it. I don't know.
Yeah, but even if she owes, she still has to pay the tax by April 15th.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right,
she's
but
going to pay a
again-
penalty.
So I don't know how she's done it other years, but we've kind of talked about it. So we'll see what happens, where she can go. But like I
And-
said, the bottom line is just go to a tax preparer and just be prepared to pay. And just, you know, this year, this is the way it's going to be. And next year, start early.
And that's
Be aware of
not
it next
dissimilar
year.
to not dissimilar to where we ended up last year when halfway through the season, we shut down. Middle of March, we just did a cold shutdown because of COVID. And all of a sudden, everybody that
Right.
had appointments got shut out. And now what do they do? And,
Right.
you know, they went,
That-
we've had several come with from paid preparers and they were very happy to be back.
Yep. Well, that's what happened because she was going to go. And then her brother went to this tax preparer and he said that people were there not wearing masks and doing stuff. And she felt very uncomfortable going there and
Yep.
she decided not to. So I forget what she did last year, but she'll, again, I don't know what she's going to do this year, but, you know, now Lyle, a question. you can't start doing taxes until a certain date every year, right?
Well, I mean,
Um,
generally speaking, the IRS will usually start accepting taxes somewhere around the end of January to February 1st. This year, they didn't
Now,
start
what if,
accepting them until February 12th.
well, what if you made an appointment to have your taxes done? Can you do that in advance? You know, like you
Oh.
like say this year was what, February 12th, but say you called the place and said, can I make an appointment like in January for that date to come in? Can you do that?
That's dependent on the site, but as an example, in Chili, typically on a normal year, they started taking appointments in early December.
Okay, all right. Well, then that's a thing I can tell her about for next year, just to be, you know, I'm sure next year things will be different than this year too.
We
And
sure
maybe
hope
back
so.
to normal.
Yeah,
So,
let's hope so.
Now,
so
this
maybe
year,
it will be a,
yeah, this year I didn't start taking appointments until like the third week in January because we weren't even sure we were going to be able to open at all. And there were other sites that didn't start until into February, again, for the same reason of we were still trying to sort out what's this process look like, what's the equipment we need, how are we going to do this and stay safe for both the clients and the volunteers. So there was a lot of uncertainty leading to when we finally did open. But as I said, so far I've been pleased. People have been, for the most part, following the guidelines. We haven't had any issues of anyone refusing to wear a mask because that would be totally unacceptable. So it's going well.
all right. Well, that's good because the fact that you can make an appointment ahead of actually having to fight, you know what I mean, just to get in and do it within the legal time that you can do it would
Right.
be good for her.
The
Because
sites that
being where
amaze
she
me, there
lives,
are
you know.
there are a number of sites that don't take appointments, that are just a first come, first serve in a normal year, not this year. This year only appointments. And I
Right.
can't fathom
Right.
how that works. People actually will line up 2-3 hours before the door opens to get in. And in Western New York in February,
Yeah.
That's a hard thing to think about.
yes.
So, okay, well, thank you, Lyle. That's something for me to pass on to her for next year.
Well, believe it or not, we just opened up 30 to 40 more in Gates as of today. Because Chili was closed, I've been helping out the person that runs the Gates site. And actually they didn't want to get too close to the end of the season. So I just picked up April 9th as a day that we're going to take in probably another 28 to 32 clients there. So we just opened that up today. Got to probably fill up pretty quick.
There you
This
go,
is-
Shirley. Tell your person.
Have her call right away.
Nate.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that was
Yep.
my, I was going to ask, which is, let's say Riga or whatever, is there a limiting who you serve, or is it that entire sector from Syracuse to Buffalo?
Typically, this year, because of some of the that limited the early reservations to just their own people. I mean, it's their facility; they want to serve their clientele, but in general, it's whoever calls. We do a lot of returns for people out of that are out of Rochester. We have some that are Byron Burgeon. We've got some from Kendall, Hilton, Greece. So and down to Avon area. So yeah, there's no strict limitation on that. Generally, it's whoever gets the appointment.
So they might be able to help Shirley's friend then.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, see, that's the other thing though. She lives an hour and a half away from here. I can't see her driving all the way in from where she lives here. That's where she would probably end up going to Buffalo for, because that's closer to her than coming out this way. So
It's a nice
but
ride.
again,
it would have been today.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been. I haven't seen her in a year, pretty much to the day. And even now she's still kind of like, I don't know, I won't see you maybe May, maybe. And we've had our shots, but she's still a little reluctant, because the whole COVID thing freaked her out totally. But so I don't know. With her, I've learned it is what it is. I can only do so much for her and the rest it's up to her.
Yes. That was sort of where Rick was coming
know?
from earlier. We can lead a horse to water, right? But
Yeah,
all you
can't
can
make
do
them
is drown
drink.
them after that.
You give them your options and you say, then, you're gonna do whatever it is, but you have a date line on this for April 15th. So, find whatever works for you,
Yep.
So,
Yep.
She's
all
been
right,
an hour
Lyle,
and a half
I guess.
away, then she's
What?
really only an hour away from Gates.
Yeah, but she won't. No, I know her. No, that ain't happening. She'd rather go to East Aurora and out that way than she would this way.
It brings up one more question, which is the deadline still April 15th this year?
Yes.
Yes.
The
Okay.
answer is yes. Will it continue to stay at April 15th? The answer is I don't know. A number of paid preparers and others have been trying to make a case for extending it. This recent bill that's passing, just to give you a heads up on a couple of things that my answer is I have no clue how it's going to be dealt with. There are two big things that are in this bill that's just passing. One of those is that embedded in there is that the first $10,200, now where did the 200 come from? Don't have a clue. Why wouldn't you just go with 10,000? At any rate, first $10,200 of unemployment would be tax-free for 2020 in a bill that's being passed on March 10th. Now, just consider the sanity to that. And so there's a lot of questions. I'm getting a lot of questions, obviously, from within my own organization of, well, what are we going to do? We're going to hold it. Well, the IRS has to figure out what does that really mean. They have to figure out how they're going to update their code without breaking everything else in terms of processing the returns coming in. The software we use, they've got to figure out how to include it in code. TurboTax, tax cut, everybody's got it. My guess is they'll be lucky to get any of this implemented before the end of the tax season. So that's one of them. And at the moment, we're letting people know, but we're just processing regular returns. There's no way that I can put people on hold because, again, I'm going to have an answer when they've all got to be filed anyway. The other one is some may not be aware, but for those that have taken advantage of getting their health insurance through the New York State of Health, so through what we call the marketplace, and that's the Affordable Care Act, in some cases they can get a lot of credits toward paying those premiums. The place that where people can get in trouble is if they project their income at this level, then their income really comes in at this one. And their income comes in high enough that it trips them out of being eligible for any credits. We've had 2 or 3 people come through where they now they have to pay those credits back to the tune of $8,000 to $10,000. In one part of this bill would forgive that repayment. That's a huge impact to them. Now, at the moment, we don't have very many people in the category, so we'll probably hold the returns. But quite frankly, it's a few hundred. The complications involved in holding, I'm not going to mess with it. But if somebody owes a few thousand, we're probably going to hold that return and see if they can straighten it out before April 15th. So it's continues to be a challenging circus.
Do you think that they're going to revise the tax code again within the next 4 years?
You're not really asking that with a straight face, are you?
Well, considering I'm thinking that they might because, Trump did this and then
they changed
everything around. And now everybody seems to want to always revise things sometimes every couple of years.
Yeah, well, they change everything every year anyhow. So
I know.
So I was going through my business forms and they changed a bunch of things this year. They changed a bunch of things last year.
Yes.
It's a pain in the butt.
Yes, it is. Exactly.
Yes.
The one thing I'll say,
all right. Well, anybody have any other questions for? Oh, sorry, Laura.
I actually continue to use TurboTax for my personal taxes. And you can say, well, wait a minute, you have this free use of here. Well, that's because I've had some complex investments. I mentioned low-income housing. We got involved in that. Actually got involved in that 20 or 30 years ago. Our last ones are just ending sort of their cycle. They usually last 15 to 18 years. And I had so much carry forward data that I was like, I'm not going to try and transfer this to another system. I'm just going to stay within it. For those who aren't afraid of a computer and aren't afraid of spending some time, I can tell you, if you take a product like TurboTax and you use what they call Easy Step, they will ask you every question known to man to make sure that you get everything entered, that you get every deduction you deserve, that you didn't miss income. It may take you 16 hours to do your return, but I can assure you, you'll end up with a good return. Needless to say, it's been several years since I worried about that level of using it. I enter everything pretty much directly myself because I know where it needs to go. But and I'm guessing there are other products out there that are similar. Of they'll do an anal retentive examination of everything you have, and you can do it yourself if you're so inclined. Many people, yeah, yes, many. Well, they don't charge by the page because you just buy their typical package now is in the $50, $60, $70 range. So it's not outrageous compared to paying $200. But the difference is you have to have the patience to walk through it.
I have a quick question for you. If you were out for workers' comp, is that taxable?
Workers' comp comes in as income. And so it can be depending on your situation. Some of them are, some aren't.
Okay, because you never got any paperwork on it, any forms or anything about it.
If you didn't get any tax forms, the odds are good that you're good to go.
Good. Because this has been a good, I use TurboTax myself.
Yep.
And because of all the changes and regulations, I made money this year.
Yeah.
Because they gave me that money, which was more than my tax bill was.
Yep. Yep.
So I came out ahead.
That's always good. Nobody
Good.
wants to pay.
That's certainly true.
So they paid me this year.
Do we need to
So-
put a disclaimer in here anywhere that neither Lyle nor Apple Cider is responsible legally and financially for the accuracy of any statements made? If so, I just said so.
All right, Lyle, do you have anything else to impart? Anybody else have any final questions for him?
I mean, if
No.
anybody has any questions or need any other info, essentially my name at iCloud.com. I'm easy. Feel free to reach out. Be glad to help where I can. And it's taxes frighten the dickens out of people. They're afraid of the IRS because of all the stories that you hear at times. I can tell you, I've dealt with the IRS many times, and they're people just like we are. You approach them reasonably. You can have a good discussion. You can work through stuff, and it all works out in the end. So they're not the boogeyman. And don't blame the IRS for the mess everything is. Blame Congress.
And I will say that for my part, that using this free tax preparation service through the New York State site, the scariest part of the whole process every year is what changes the online taxes company has made to their login security.
Oh, yeah.
Beyond that, it's just a magical mystery tour through their little questions and stuff.
Right.
All right, then. Well, Lyle, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you
Okay.
very
I'm
much.
sure
Yeah, it was
everybody
really
very-
good.
Great job,
Yeah.
Lyle. Great job.
Yes, got notes for next year,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And where to go. And I,
Yeah.
And do you realize how many people don't understand that? Many of our clients only look at their refund. How come I'm not getting as much back? And you go in and look and they had a lot less withheld. I try to keep focusing people on, it's how much you're paying the federal government. That's the line you need to look at. Oh, by the way, if you want to make sure you get a refund, have more held back or less, whatever, depending on what you want, but don't just focus on the refund. Focus on what you're actually paying in taxes when you're trying to manage your finances.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, but most people do not put that money away.
That's right. It's
They
like a
use-
savings account,
They use that refund as their
a no
kind of
interest savings account.
savings, even though you're not getting any interest, but
You're right. Back in the day where you got 5, 6, 7% on a savings account, it made a difference.
Right.
Now it's basically just a Christmas club. But like you said, a lot of people look forward to that because if they get it every week, they're going to spend it. And this way they at least get a little rejoicing here as we come into spring.
yeah, I'm trying to tell my kids that. So,
Good luck.
All right, well, it's 9 o'clock. I think that's an appropriate place to, we were gonna do, everybody had up until 8 o'clock to vote, but I guess it'll be 9 o'clock. If they haven't voted already, then I guess we can go,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah, let's take care of business.
yes, that's what I'm planning to do. So, all right, let's call the business meeting to order. It's 9:01.
And I'll log
As far as
out.
I
Nice to
know.
see everybody.
Thank you.
Yes,
Lyle.
thank you, Lyle, again so much.
No, I'll pass. Thanks.
That's true. All right, so we'll call the business meeting to order. I'll make it 9:02. That's what I have. Charlie, do you have 9:02?
Well, I just wrote down 901 because you said 901. So
Still have
No, that's
901
okay.
on my
we'll,
computer.
That's,
make-
that's fine.
now
Close enough.
the other question is, do we have a number for those in attendance? I've got like 14 maybe. Okay, but
Yeah,
present.
I saw
Kim was in there
15.
twice. So
So
just
what-
count her as once.
They each have a membership. So are we basically going to call it
Yeah.
14 people or what?
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
right.
it sounds good.
Okay, because the thing is, the quorum for a business meeting is 10% of the membership, which means that about 4 people would be enough, but at least I have this for the minutes of the business meeting. Go ahead, Shirley. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone need to renew their membership? Hopefully. All right, so our nominating committee we had, and our, as I said before, who are candidates? Me, Shirley Ray as president, Steve as treasurer quartermaster, Charlie as secretary, Carol Areno, Bob Hoey, Ken Schultz, Douglas Perryman, all as directors, and Kim Leslie as vice president of publicity are on the ballots. Okay. So Steve, I guess everybody's had time to go and do their ballots, so I guess you can go and tally them all up and see who's won the nominations.
Well,
All right.
just for the record, so we deal with the question. Are there any additional nominations or people who want to be on the board or something like that? As I said earlier, I don't think that we would actually take care of it today, but I would like to know if there were any additional nominations.
Charlie, there was the write-in portion of the ballot, so people who were voting could write in.
Yeah, I got no problem with any of this, Ken. Exactly, given that we're keeping the voting open until 9, but I'm just, for the record, we asked and we got an answer of no.
All right, so my president's report then. Basically, I'm just going to run through what we talked about during the year. So last March, we had our elections. That was our last real meeting. April was canceled, from what I could tell, remember, and what I could see because of COVID. So we didn't have a meeting in April. May, our topics were virtual meetings, meeting software. Where are all those settings? June, we had iOS settings, and George gave a chef's choice as to what he gave. July, we were supposed to have a picnic. It was canceled. We had no meeting in July. August, Worldwide Developers Conference, and George also did a little chef's choice talk. September, editing with photos on the iPad. George gave a little talk about that, and we had some Apple news. October was Adam Inks from Tidbits and Chuck Joyner from Mac Voices. November, YSSD with Ken Schultz and new Apple products. December, we had holiday gifts and new Apple products. January was Holiday Haul and CES 2021. February, we had shortcuts with Douglas Perryman and mini hearing test with Dennis Worster. So that's a summary of what our keynotes and basic meeting topics were. All right, Steve, I'll give it to you for the treasurers and quartermasters report.
Yes.
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 Yes, I am, but I'm on my iPad and I'm trying to figure out how the thumbnails of people are running across the bottom, and I don't know where to go to convert to what would be, I guess, the speaker view or whatever that. Well, hold on a minute. Maybe that's true. Switch camera. Nope. I'm hitting the 3 dot, going into meeting settings. No, I don't think that does it. Anyway, no big deal. I mean, thank you for the report, and I'm fine with it. I don't want to waste time on this.
So Steve, I got a quick question. The Zoom license, is that an annual thing or is it a one-time fee?
Steve, when did you get that? It was pretty late in the year.
Yeah, I thought it was in the fall, right?
Okay, so by this coming October, November, we should know whether we're meeting back at East High or not in time to cancel that before we have to pay again. Okay.
Okay, and we didn't pay the rest of the rental for the school since we didn't use it?
We only pay after we use it. Right, you're right.
Okay.
We did.
All right.
I wanted to make a comment in passing that, you know, it's March and we're forced to use a virtual meeting format. So naturally, the weather is just fine and there's no problem with having to cancel a business meeting. We usually get blown out for that thing in the March meeting. That's my point.
Yeah.
Did we finish the treasurer's report? Well, then I have a question. I think the answer is no, but during the board meetings, when you give your report, we have a motion and a second and a vote to whether to accept the report. Does anybody know if that kind of thing is necessary during this business meeting?
It's a business meeting. I'd say you do it.
All right. I move we accept the treasurer's report.
I second it.
And that was Carol. Okay, Carol. Maisley. There we
Correct.
go. Any discussion? Vote, accept,
Yep.
unanimous and all that stuff. Nobody against, right?
No.
Thank you. Shirley, I will turn the leadership of the meeting back to you. I guess we're at the quartermaster's report.
Right, Steve. So go ahead.
Are you able to run Big Sur on it?
A quick question, Steve. On the YouTube stream, is there any reason why the sound might be intermittent? Or is that my equipment?
Shoot, I'm sorry. I forgot to turn my mic back on. So my speech wasn't going into the YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
I was muted. I saw a cartoon the other day about a seance. A Zoom meeting is a modern day seance. People are trying to join us. You know, Mary, are you there? No, Mary, you're muted. You gotta unmute yourself. So that was fun.
Okay, so is that your
I think
report?
so. Yeah, we don't have. The bag of cameras we just got. Yeah, that should be it.
Okay.
So roughly, when do you think we would have to replace the computer?
Barring unforeseen circumstances, we should get another year out of it.
Okay.
I don't see. Well, it's hard to see. Since we are doing more virtual meetings and virtual streaming, it does tend to push the computer. In fact, my fans have been ramped up the whole meeting because it's doing so much. What is it? I'm at 160 degrees for which, yeah, my CPU average temperature is 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's until we really need to do something we can't do, and I probably will get around to installing Big Sur on it. There's been enough updates that it's probably stable enough. I might do it after mix. I keep everything backed up, but it's a good idea to have a backup just in case you need to go back.
When we get to the Q&A, if we have time for Q&A after this, I will say something to the effect that Big Sur, every time I do an update on it, seems to kind of screw around with a little something on the computer. It's weird.
But they keep adding more security protocols to prevent bad guys from getting software and stuff into your computer. And as a side effect, things that you want to run keep having to ask for permission all the time. And it's very frustrating and annoying. I was just reading one today about LogMeIn. You know, somebody says, I've got 300 people using LogMeIn that I help manage. Today, every computer needs to hit OK and authorize access to LogMeIn in system preferences. And I can't have 300 novice users needing to do that, which is partially Apple's fault, and they shouldn't be blaming LogMeIn about it, but I can understand their frustrations.
All right.
So is that all the news from Mars, Steve?
Yeah. Yeah, I went to Mars while we were listening to Lyle.
Yes. All right. So I guess it's time for our election results. Have you got them tabulated?
Yep. Let me get that window back. Surprisingly, everyone who was running won. We had 15 responses, which is half our membership. So we had a 50% turnout. That's pretty good. The only write-in was on the director. Someone wrote in OK for the 5th director. So that's okay, I guess. So
It's
OK got 6% of the vote.
Right, Carol?
What?
Okay, it's auto kilter.
Auto kilter. Yep. Well, congratulations, everybody.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
On the agenda, Shirley and Steve, I put a question of whether you can print any kind of a hard copy, a paper copy of those results before we lose access to them for you to put in the Ray Basement Archive storage.
I can export a file. Let me see what it says.
Because in the past, I think we've kept the balance or something.
Yeah.
Oh,
you could just print out.
What?
To do an export, I have to pay.
What?
Just take a screenshot.
Yeah, I can print
take your
I can
screenshot.
Print a PDF, but that's interesting.
Oh, all right. Okay, so on to old business. Do we have any old business with our business meeting?
No.
No.
No? All right, any new business? We want to talk about anything?
I don't think we need to put it into the business meeting minutes or anything like that, but come June, so I will repeat the process of applying to East High for the meeting room, and we'll see where that gets us. I'm not going to bug the school district until then, I think, because I think they are doing some in-person student learning, but we're probably one of the last things they want to deal with before they get that going. Okay. So people generally agree with that idea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Which means, in other words, that we're figuring on being virtual for April, May, and June.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
The rest of the school
I
year.
would agree with that.
What happened?
Was that an I don't agree or was a do agree?
It was a do agree.
We do agree.
Okay.
All
I
right.
do
It's only
agree.
a couple months. I mean, it's hard to believe that it's already been a year. You know, a year's gone
Yeah.
by of sitting home for nothing. So I certainly don't think
Yeah.
things are going to change in a couple months.
No.
A couple of months
All
will be
right.
gone like tomorrow.
Do we want to make a motion to adjourn our business meeting?
I
I'll
so
move.
move.
Who was the first mover
So
there?
Was that you, Ken?
Let it be Carol. Let it be Carol.
Okay, Carol A.
I
And
second.
and Ken is seconding, right?
Sure.
No,
Okay.
no discussion. Is there a vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, yeah. And the time I have is 9:20. Does that sound good, Shirley, or what do you want?
Yep, that sounds good. So that'll be our time. So that's the end of our business meeting. So we can go on to have some more Q&A business news if people are still interested, and Steve can just start talking, and if you need to leave, you can leave, basically. But we'll give Steve 15 minutes to talk,
I have
which may be a
two.
very short time for.
I have two things I wanted to bring up for Q&A. The one simple thing is I'm on my MacBook Pro, I'm running Big Sur, and with the latest software update, I believe is when this happened, it went to the battery management regimen in which it charges to 80%, except during the times of day that it thinks you use the machine most, and then it goes to 100%. My pattern in the past has been, since essentially I use the thing as a desktop computer, I run it on power all the time, except when I let it go to sleep when I go to bed. And at that point, I turn the power supply off. And this, to me, is an okay way to, quote, work the battery. I've had the machine for 3 years now. I have, according to Coconut battery, about 137 charge cycles on it. I've been trying to watch that sort of day by day since it has gone to this 80% charge thing, because that actually is lower than I had normally had the battery level drop, doing it the way I was doing it, you know, shutting off the power when I go to bed, turning it back on when I resume using the computer. So my question is, I think you can change that in preferences. Would it be any harm if I went into preferences and just shut that feature off?
It shouldn't be, no. Yeah, if you want to manage your own battery, that should be fine.
Wouldn't him unplugging it at night have the cycle count go up? We're just keeping it plugged in. It wouldn't use a cycle count because it's plugged
Yeah,
in.
can agree with what you're saying, but not that I understand batteries, but my understanding of them is that it is desirable to have a small amount of up and down activity in them for the health of the battery. Steve, what do you think?
I always thought that it was that you actually should drain the battery down to almost zero or even zero, and that sometimes resets the power management and also sets the cycle rather than doing it in short cycles where you're only losing, let's say, 5% or something like that. But I could be wrong.
That was the old rule with power.
Yeah, I think that's an old
drills,
rule. Yeah.
drills and other cordless tools. You want to drain them down completely and then recharge them. But the word was that's no longer true.
Well, this is the point. The technology in the batteries changes, and at any given stage, I won't pretend that I actually do understand the technology of it. It sounds like with what you're just saying with the power tools, that was the old rule that used to apply to NiCad batteries.
NiCad
Because
and nickel metal hydride, yeah.
Oh, both of those. Okay. They had a memory problem. And if you only let them drain down to a certain level, that became the new zero. I have a cordless phone with one of those batteries, and I actually have the ringer off most of the time, and then just turn it on to use it. But I wait until the battery gets quite low before I recharge it. And I've had this battery in it for years. Okay. And I'm pretty sure that's a NiCad. But with the lithium batteries, and I don't know the difference between lithium ion and lithium polymer and all the rest of it, but my impression is just that they don't have that memory problem.
Right.
You do want to have some up and down activity in. Case in point being, I have a little handheld portable TV thing that I had for years and did not recharge, and went to recharge it and it would not take a charge. So I had to replace the battery in it. And after I did that, then, once a week, I let the thing run for a few minutes and then the next time the first time that I do that and then try to turn it on again and it does not turn on, then I give it a full charge. But I'm trying to do that for that what do they call it? Working the battery thing, that makes sense.
I'm trying to find if they still recommend cycling it every couple of months. I do see that. So I posted a link in the Zoom chat from Apple on maximizing performance. If you're going to store your battery, charge it to 50% to store it. And if you store it longer than 6 months, charge it back up to 50% every 6 months. I don't see a recommendation now where they say to discharge it all the way every month or so. And they have different tips on different models. Because
I was curious about the same thing with the iPhone. Like, because I just sit here, do I leave it plugged in when I'm not using it, or do I let it drain every day down? Like, which is better?
Yeah, if you let it drain all the time, then it's you're always putting cycles on it to recharge it again. If you leave it plugged in, then it never has to go through a cycle. And the latest software will run it to about 80% and leave it there. And it watches your habits, which is interesting. So, you get up every morning at 8 o'clock, it will charge itself to 100% by 8 o'clock, so it's ready for you to go. Because you don't want to keep it fully charged for that long either. You don't want to keep it fully charged, okay, and you don't want to keep it fully empty.
So basically, under that regime, you have it connected to the power supply, but it is not charging from the power supply until that time of day.
Right. The software keeps track of that and manages the battery itself. Now, that's specifically for Apple devices. Every company handles their charging differently.
Right.
Well, I have no set schedule, particularly since I'm home all the time.
So
like when yeah. I mean, I never see mine at 80. Mine charges up to 100. Like, I never notice it stuff because I could just I plug it in whenever. Oh, look, it's getting low, so I plug it in. So basically, you're saying like when it gets to 100, I should unplug it, and then when it gets down to like some 50, 40, 30, plug it in again and take it out at like 90. Is that what you're saying?
No, leave it plugged in. That way you don't have any cycles. And so when it will maximize the life of the battery. So if you do need to use it on battery, you haven't used up all the cycles.
So if it's at 100, I should still leave it plugged in at 100?
The phone will figure it out for itself.
Okay.
That's assuming that it has this feature in the current version of its software, right?
Right. And
right now,
when did they add that in the phone? I think it was 14.
And the point I would make is that, Kim, I also have a somewhat erratic schedule in the course of the day. So, you know, it's not going to easily figure out a regular cycle to do this in. However, I will point out that there are times when I, you know, wake the computer from sleep with the power. I turn on the power. It's on a power strip of the switch. So I turn on the switch and wake the computer from sleep, and it may be at 80% or something like that. But it does then charge up to 100%. But my point, as far as my daily schedule and the way I use this particular computer, is that I think that that is allowing a larger swing in the top to bottom charge cycle than it would be getting if I just did what I normally used to do, which is to, again, turn the power on when I use the computer and turn it off when I let the computer sleep. So I'm inclined to go into preferences and just turn off this 80% thing.
Yeah, on the iPhone, they added that feature in iOS 11.3, which was what,
My
3 years
phone
ago now?
updated to like, my phone updated like without telling me or asking me. It just all of a sudden one day updated like, okay, you have 14 point whatever now. And I'm like, well, thanks. How do I know I wanted it?
It must be set to automatic.
You can set whether it does auto up.
And it stays on auto update until you turn it off.
Yeah, I never turned it on, so I didn't know I had to turn it off.
One
I don't
update
like
you did
that.
turned it on.
Oh, I never did an update, but I don't know. I don't check the settings until I need to. Like, what is battery percentage? There's a on off. What does that mean?
So you can see the battery percentage in your menu bar.
Oh, that's simple. Okay.
Some people want to see an actual number, not just the icon.
Oh yeah, I like the number. Battery health 92%.
What's interesting is they rate 80% as when batteries are eligible for replacement.
Yeah, but that am I correct that would be when the full charge capacity of the battery is at 80% of the original full charge capacity?
Right.
So not, in other words, 80% of the current charge capacity. The current charge capacity is 80% of the original charge capacity.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. When the phone says 100%, it's 100% charged, but that's 80% of the original capacity. Yeah, here's that rotary dial cell phone. And apparently he's got a website where he'll build one for you too.
Right, is Jackie still on? Jackie, are you here?
Yeah, I don't see her on the list.
Yeah.
Steve.
Yep.
Thank you for your help on that. And my other question, I won't take a lot of time with it, but this is really not only to you, but to anybody who wants to chime in. I am as sure as I can be that my inkjet printer has died. And so I need to go get another. Are there any recommendations from anybody in terms of what brand or whatever?
Don't get ink, get laser.
Yeah.
The cost of consumables on ink printers is ridiculous. Up to $4,000 a gallon for ink. And if you don't use it enough, it dries out, wasting all that money.
It does. Is that I like the ability when I want to copy in color.
Yeah.
By printing.
Get a color laser printer.
You can get color laser printers in the 150, 200 range for a basic one.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Yeah. You get thousands of prints, you know, I mean.
Charlie?
I changed it in like 8 years. I've only changed the toner once.
Charlie, if you get a cheap laser printer in a box of crayons, that will work great.
Oh.
So, but if
we have tended to like Brother. Brother and
Brother,
HP are
that's
kind
what
of
I
the big name brands. Brother we tend to see a little bit cheaper than HP, and they've both been around forever. The biggest thing is whether you want the scanner feature, and there's not much need for scanners anymore, since so many things come from the computer to begin with. If you need a copy, you can usually just print another copy.
I like having that available.
Yeah. I'm trying to find where the button is for color. Oh, I am on color. So all of these ones are color. We'll sort by price. 150 bucks.
But how much are the replacement cartridges?
Yeah, the cartridges are usually in the 40 to 50 range, but they last for 3,000 or 4,000 pages. So like
Right.
Bob said, you might replace them once a year, if that. And
Does
because
it-
it's toner, it doesn't dry out.
But does it use a single cartridge with like the multiple
No.
toners?
It's 4 separate cartridges.
4 separate toner cartridges.
Yeah.
At $50 or more a pop.
Let me see if I can find one here.
What site are you looking at?
I'm right at Brothers website now. So these are list prices. You can probably find them cheaper on Amazon. What's that one I just?
Can you use that for photos, or do you need inkjet for photos?
Well, it depends. If for what you would do for an art photo, an inkjet printer would be better. Liquid ink mixes better to do photos. There it is,
You need
32.
photo quality, you go to the drugstore.
Yeah, that's the other option for 15, 20 cents. You can print them online. So some of the the 3290 is the one we just sold to a customer. It has a flatbed scanner on it. If you want one that has a sheet feeder for multiple copies, that's often a little bit more.
Oh, but you know what scanners are good for? Speaking artistically, you can make you can set stuff on them and take pictures, and create art collages.
Yeah. One thing
If
a lot
you
of
have
people
a
don't
sit-home.
realize is in the iPhone Notes app, there's a document scanner, and it's different than using the camera to take a picture. It is more like a scanner.
Huh.
And so it can scan objects as if you had an actual scanner.
Notes.
And that's in the Notes
Can you
app.
set stuff on the phone and take a picture?
Yeah. And then because you can do markup, you can scan a document, sign it, check mark it, and then send it back to where it needs to go.
Steve, I've still got that Brother printer that you sold me. Oh, it must be way over 10 years old now.
Yeah.
And it's still, working really well.
Is that a laser, Rick?
Yeah, it's a toner cartridge.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Powdered
Well, thank you
toner.
all very much, because it looks like it's time for me to look at a color laser printer.
Yeah, I like the Brother model. It's a good deal.
Yeah, I've had an HP laser printer for 12 years now, and it still works pretty good.
Oh, that's how long I had this one until this inkjet, which is an HP, until it finally I'm pretty sure the printer's dead because I cannot make a copy with it either.
Yeah.
It was giving me an error code trying to go from the computer to the printer, but then I just said, well, let's see if it'll copy something, and the answer is no.
One thing I found with inkjet printers, going to now Big Sur, if you got it, let's say in maybe 8 years ago or 7 years ago, they're not updating the drivers for it. So if you want to use some of the features, or it may not even work at all, or you can't get the software for it anymore.
If the printer is AirPrint compatible, which a lot of them have been, then it can print with the generic AirPrint printer. But I just ran into that with I've got a LaserJet 1212, and I can't scan over the network. I can only scan over USB, which was annoying when I needed to scan. The one time I needed to scan something in the last year. One of the things that's kind of interesting, I had a member once, I forget who, they were talking about, you get an inkjet printer for $50 and it comes with ink. And then, in 6 months when you've used up the ink, you throw it away and buy a new one.
Yeah, no, I agree. The inkjet is a pain in the butt in terms of the cartridges drying out and all the rest of that stuff. So I'm glad the time has come when color lasers are cheap enough that I can consider one. I'll have to pay attention to whether it's AirPrint compatible, right?
Virtually everything you buy today would be. But yeah,
I've been using a
you want to
company.
print from your iPad, then make sure it's on the list.
Yeah, I've been using a company called Ink Technologies, and they use they're able to not use, let's say, in a lot of their, let's say, older printers, non-HP cartridges. A cartridge that would cost me, let's say, $40-50, I can get for $8 through Ink Technologies.
Wow.
Now,
yeah, go ahead.
Now you do get sometimes you will get a message, especially from the HP, it says this is not a certified HP, but it still works. So that's nice. Now I was looking for ink cartridges for my wife's newer printer. And evidently it's a 80-20. They don't have their own cartridges. They still have to get the HP cartridges.
Yep. One thing the printer companies have done is they've started putting chips in the cartridge, both laser and ink, so that you have to use their cartridges. And it also killed refilling, because when the chip says the tank is empty, it doesn't matter that you refill it, it's empty. There's actually been a few lawsuits about it, that people are trying to stop cartridge chips.
Meaning that in that case, you have refilled it, but it simply refuses to work.
Yeah.
That was the other thing I liked about the Brother printer, was that the cartridges, you could actually reset them when they said they were out, and you'd get a lot more out of them.
Well, one of the tricks we found with the Brothers is that it uses an optical sensor to know when the toner gets low. So basically, if the sensor can see through the toner cartridge, there's a hole, or not a hole, a lens on each end, when the toner gets low enough that the light beam can go through, it says your toner's low. So we just put a piece of black tape over that sensor, and it doesn't know it's low.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Part of the problem is you shake it up and you get a couple hundred more pages out of it. But here's a Supreme Court decision from 2017 against Lexmark, that they can't put chips to stop you from refilling.
Are they still around?
Yeah, Lexmark is still around. They had a factory in Farmington for a while. I don't know if they still do. I don't know if this also is other printer companies, or this was just against Lexmark. One thing they do say, the manufacturers, and there might be some truth to it, is that they use better quality products. So we've seen people back in the early days would get really cheap ink to refill their cartridges, and it would destroy the cartridge and the printer because it leaked all over or didn't print properly.
Yeah. It kind of sounds like a company that I think we're familiar with that does a lot of that.
Yeah, there was a local company
called Apple.
No, American. It was American Toner and Cartridge. Yeah, I think they're gone now. They used to have offices around where you could take your cartridge in and have them refill it for you.
Yeah, was that the one in Henrietta?
Yeah, there was one in Victor near us too.
Yeah, they're gone.
Alrighty. Let's see, what was the other thing we were talking about?
Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that. Oh, yeah, big news. there is rumors of a spring Apple event coming up on the 23rd. And so a lot of the blogs were talking about what has been done in the past in the event. So a lot of the expectations now are going to be a new iPad Pro. The current iPad Air that got released last fall, it has a faster processor than the iPad Pro at double the price. So we're really behind, excuse me, for an iPad Pro. And they may go to a mini LED display instead of the LCD display they're using now. They may get the better cameras that the new iPhone has. So that's, and they'll get the A14 chip.
Are you talking March 23rd?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Wow, cool.
On iPhone SE 2, I hadn't heard this rumor for a while. There's actually a website now that rates the rumor guys, well, people, whether on how accurate their rumors have been, and that's kind of neat. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Yeah, Apple Track. So Love to Dream has an 89% accuracy rate out of 100 rumors. So that they track how the rumors have gone, which is kind of neat. But also the rumors of an iPhone SE 3, I hadn't heard about that. But as I said earlier, the iPhone SE is an 11 in an 8 case. So an SE 3 could be a 12 in an 8 case. So they could increase the performance of the SE as well. Rumors about the AirPods 3 and AirPods Pro 2 with better designs, better battery life, the H1 chip for being able to control the syncing better. AirTags has been a huge thing for several years now. That they've been seen in the code. Basically, an AirTag. They don't have a picture. AirTag is like a tile or a tracker that you would like put in your bag or in your wallet or something that could be tracked if you lost it, and it works like a mesh network, so that if you drop your keys that has a tile on it somewhere, if someone else with an iPhone walks by it, it will ping the network, and the network will tell you, we just saw your keys in this location, which is kind of neat. In the iOS 14.3 beta code, someone found a anti-stalker coding. So if a stalker slips an AirTag on your person, and they could then be able to physically track you on their phone. And so what what the code was basically showing is that if someone is tracking something not associated with their own Apple ID, it won't work right. So that would be interesting to cut down on stalkers trying to track people. And new Apple TV hardware has been running for a while. Rumors are running. I think right now it has an A10 processor in it. And as Apple is pushing Apple Arcade more and casual gaming, it would be better with a better processor. Being able to do 4K video from more sources would need the better processor, so that would be cool. We're also starting to see something interesting that was over here. The Apple Silicon transition, where more computers changing to Apple Silicon. The iMac Pro seems to have been discontinued. The custom ordering is discontinued, and the only model you can buy right now is the base model, the $5,000 base model, and it's while supplies last. So that could mean that there is a new iMac coming. Whether that would come out at the March event, we don't know yet, but we still have iMacs. There is the redesigned higher-end MacBook Pros. There's rumors of a 14-inch and a bigger 16-inch, making the bezels smaller and making the computer bigger, the screen bigger. And so we'll see what happens. If there is going to be a 23rd event, then we'll likely see rumors. We'll see an announcement next week that there will be a virtual event. One of the things that's happened, and what was interesting at the end of last year, they had 4 events: September, October, November, December. Because they're pre-recording it, it's a lot easier for them to do in production, and it makes it quicker and easier to put out an hour-long, streaming video rather than the 2 hours they used to do, where they had to, physically go to different places in their live showing. So it's going to be interesting to see, especially when you look through the different rumor sites on what's going to be. Let's see, 2 days ago, you might have more information than 3 days ago. But the AirTags, the iPad Pro. So we'll all have to wait and see whose rumors are correct. Mark Gurman is one of the more prolific leakers. That's pretty good. And John Prosser is the other one. Let me see how they rate on this list. How do I get other people? Leaderboard. So here's the leaderboard of accuracy. So Mark Gurman's at 89%. John Prosser's at 79.2. So somebody called Kang is at 97.8. So one of the things that's interesting about percentages. Okay, so he has 134 rumors and 97 of them were true. 97%. If you have one rumor and it comes true, you have 100% rating, right? Ming-Chi Kuo has been a well-known name for years. He has his ear to the supply chain side. He's often wrong because he's not right yet. So something could show up in the supply chain that's being worked on, excuse me, that isn't going to be delivered for 5 years yet. So we never know how long that might come out before it happens.
So it looks to me like Apple's going to make this announcement to try to capitalize on the stimulus checks, and that the fact that you're going to want to buy new Apple stuff with it.
Pretty much every company is going to do that. Here's your new money for stimulus, and so stimulate the economy by buying our stuff.
Well, the stimulus passed today, so they said if you go and have electronic filing, that you should have your money by next week.
Well, it passed the House. I don't think the president has signed it.
He signed it today. Yeah.
Yeah, he signed it tonight, I think.
Yep.
I heard he was going to sign it Friday.
No, I heard today is what I got.
Here's one from 2 hours ago. Let me see what they say from 2 hours ago.
See, after the bill is signed.
Yeah.
Well, it all depends. The quicker if you have e-filing, you're the one who'll get it the quickest. Everybody else
signed it
will.
on Friday. Yeah, so so it looks like he hasn't signed it yet.
Oh,
As of 2
okay.
hours ago, he hadn't signed it yet.
Okay. Tomorrow might be the day it's signed because it's 1 year exactly since first case or something.
Of COVID. Yeah, that's probably it.
I saw an interesting meme going around about the last stimulus check. When the Republicans were in charge, most of the Democrats voted in favor of the stimulus because it was helping American people. This year, with the Democrats in charge, none of the Republicans voted for it because it's better to hurt Biden than it is to help the American people.
Yeah, and it's socialism anyway. Goddamn socialist.
Yeah. Well, that was another cartoon. Someone complaining about the immigration surge that isn't illegal immigrants are surging in now that Biden's in charge, which isn't happening. And so the Americans need help. We can't have all these immigrants coming in, and so the answer is, well, let's start helping the Americans. And then the other side said, oh, we can't do that. That's socialism.
And the rich keep getting richer.
Yeah. Has anyone been following the GameStop stock short mess? Did anyone buy GameStop stock?
No.
I haven't followed it since the original mess happened.
Anything?
We've been watching Billions, the
TV show.
Amazon Prime
65. I wish I'd have bought it when it was at 50.
Wow.
And Billions are doing all this, short selling is the big theme that runs through the whole series.
I mean, this is the second wave
Mhm.
for GameStop because it went up to 350.
Yeah. So yeah, so last
couple-
fall it was at 10, 12, 15, and then it it hit way up 350, yeah, and up and down, and now it's going back up again.
Looks like the coronavirus curve.
Yeah. Maybe I'll have to buy some GameStop.
Yeah,
And it'll go right down.
Yeah,
probably.
Should have bought the Apple stock.
I have Apple stock.
You
Although
do.
it's interesting. I always worried. Whoops! I always worried about conflict of interest because I work for an Apple dealer, but I give help on Apple products. I have a vested interest in making Apple better. So, should I own Apple stock? So I'm not a journalist though, because there's a big issue in journalism about owning stock in industries you cover.
And when they do report on something like that, they have to disclose and say, just to let you know, I do own Apple stock, and then they have to disclose that.
Yep. So that's been on a downward trend.
MSNBC always has to disclose that they're owned by General Electric.
Well, Steve, it depends if you have inside knowledge of Apple.
Then that would be illegal. Yep.
Yep.
All right. Do we have any other business to talk, or do we want to close the meeting out and then just hang out and talk?
Bless you.
Bless you.
I have
busy
I have
sneezing,
question. Can I ask 3 quick questions?
Well, the only reason I said this is because it's getting approaching 10 o'clock and I want to kind of end the meeting. Doesn't mean you can't still ask your questions.
Okay, I don't care.
You know what I mean? You can still hang in there and talk. I just want to officially end the meeting and then everybody wants to talk and talk. Does that sound good for everybody?
That's fine.
Sounds good.
It's 9:57. So, all right, I'm going to officially end the meeting.
That's fast.
And that's it. So we'll officially end the meeting at 9:57. Okay, go ahead with your questions.
Okay, I was just looking at my thing, like I turned cellular off when I got the phone and I just looked at it and it was on and it has been using data. How did that happen?
Something turned it on.
But I didn't turn it on. Is there something that turns it on without my knowing it?
System update, or you got asked once and
Notification, maybe.
So when it did that system update, it might have turned it on.
It may have, yeah.
So do I need to like check it every now and then to make sure nothing turned it on?
Yep.
Kim, you said you had the power turned off.
No.
Is that what you said?
No.
Ask the question again.
My cellular, because I don't want to use up my cellular, the data. I have it turned off, but I just looked and it was turned on and it's used a bunch of it.
You can also choose what programs are allowed to use cellular. Turn all those off too.
Right. Well, it could be, if it automatically switches, and usually it will automatically switch to the Wi-Fi. So for some reason you didn't have the Wi-Fi, or you were out of range or something, it would pick up the cellular, go back to the LTE or.
Right, but if cellular data is turned off, it shouldn't do that. So something turned the cellular data back on.
Yeah, Ken, that reminds me of the kerfuffle a few years back when either a new iPhone, the hardware, or a new iOS total version or update was doing that. It was comparing the strength of the Wi-Fi signals or it was getting, and if cellular was better, it was automatically switching to cellular, and people were getting these huge cellular phone bills. Steve, you remember that one?
Yeah.
Use it. Okay.
Hey, the
Okay.
telephone guys came by and replaced the pole that that feeds the electric and everything else to my house. So that's a good sign. Maybe it means green light is on its way.
Yeah, that wasn't in Henrietta, was it?
Yeah.
No, this is Penfield.
Ah, okay.
I'm seeing online, Kim, that there's a second setting for mobile to turn cellular data off. There's another one called Wi-Fi Assist. Make sure that one's turned off, because that's probably what Charlie was talking about. If the Wi-Fi is weak, it will turn the cellular on and use it.
It won't let me turn that off. It's green. It's green, but it's grayed out.
Try turning
Why is
cellular
that?
on and then see if Wi-Fi Assist will turn off, and then turn cellular off. I'm seeing reports going back 10 years of cellular turning itself back on. If you really don't want to use cellular, take the SIM out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that'll
my other
fix it.
question.
Yeah, then it won't know
Well-
where to bill, and it can't connect to cellular.
How does this work out in terms of using it as a phone?
You can still use Wi-Fi and you can make phone calls that way.
Or you put the SIM back in to make your phone call.
How do you take the SIM out? Where is it?
Carefully.
Use a paper clip and you pop it out.
It's got to be a really small paper clip, though.
It ejects.
Yeah, there was a SIM ejection tool that came in the box for the iPhone.
Oh. That was my other question, because I don't use this as a phone. It's an active phone, but it's, like I said, it's got the prepaid minutes. So, but it keeps ringing all damn day. I don't know who's got this phone number, but it keeps ringing. How do I turn the ringer off? Because you turn the ringer down, it still rings.
Put it in
How
Do
do you
Not
turn
Disturb.
Do not disturb. Okay. Do you do that from the phone, or is that a setting?
Both. There's a switch to turn the ringer to silent, and then there's a setting called Do Not Disturb that will stop, including the phone ringer, any other notification, email, any type of sound, it will turn off.
I just want to turn off the phone ringing. Do I do that in phone or?
Probably. It's telemarketers dialing every possible phone number.
What kind of phone do you have?
6S Plus, 6S Plus.
Yeah, but can't you just turn the sound off so you just hear the vibration?
Well, what if you want the other
Well, like,
sound? You just don't want the phone to ring.
yeah, I use my sound for other things, but even when I turn the volume down all the way and the phone rings, it still rings loudly.
No, on the left side, there's a thing where you can turn off the ringer, the toggle, and it will just vibrate.
You could
It's
make
on the left side.
you can make a custom ringtone that is silence.
Ken, do you mean the actual physical button on the phone? The physical button?
Yeah, it's
On the top left, there's a little toggle.
It could be on the right. It depends on the phone.
Yeah.
And when you slide it so that the orange is showing, then it's in silent mode.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
There's a physical slider switch on the side of the phone.
The physical button you press for volume up and down.
No.
Stick your fingernail in there and click it.
She's got to find the button first. It's not a button, it's a switch.
It's over here. So if you take a look, it's over. Can you see this?
Hold it up closer to the camera.
Actually,
which is right up by the camera.
So it's over up on the, I think even on this iPhone 6, it's like on the top right. There's a little toggle and you can move it up or down.
On some phones, it's a switch that goes left and right.
Yeah. The volume buttons are right next to it.
Which are two separate buttons.
Oh, okay. I got it. Okay. Silent mode off, silent mode on.
There you go.
So then is that just muting the phone or the whole phone? Oh God,
Neither.
the phone or the whole device? What?
Neither. It mutes the ringtone.
Oh, it's just muting the ringtone.
Yeah.
Okay. I always wondered what that little button was for because I would try and press it and it wouldn't go in.
It's not a button, it's a switch.
I know, I didn't know it was a switch. Okay, let's hope. It's been waking me up like crazy, the stupid phone ringing, and it just started doing it recently.
It's probably about your car warranty.
Yeah. Well, that
Someone
was the joke
else's
too. I've
car.
been stuck in lockdown so often. I might want to talk to someone about my car warranty. But one of the tricks you can do is there's a setting in Do Not Disturb to allow VIPs to come through, and so people you actually want to talk to, you make a VIP, and then it will never ring any other phone number. So it's kind of like a big call screening, where only people that you want to call will make your phone ring.
Yeah. It will only call. It will only allow calls from people in your phone book.
I don't think I have anybody in my phone book.
So the people you want to receive phone calls from, you add to your phone book.
Wow, there's a lot of stuff in here. I wish I could use it as a phone.
So it's one of them. Is that the one that silence unknown callers? Is that the one?
Yep, that's there. Yeah.
Is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock.
Yep.
Silence unknown callers.
So I'll just turn it on, and then I won't get any calls because no one's in my contacts.
When you toggle it, you'll get a display on the screen that tells you that it's silent or that it's, active.
And when you turn Do Not Disturb on, you get a little crescent moon in your menu bar.
Okay, I haven't found Do Not Disturb yet. Blocked contacts. Everybody. No.
Yeah, you can block
No, there are a
repeated
couple.
calls. The problem is the spammers hardly ever use the same phone number again when they call you.
And sometimes I do need it, like when my mom can't reach me on my other phone, she'll call this phone. Or if someone has this phone. Oh, so some delivery service, or I don't know, something has this phone. I don't know why. Announce calls. Announce calls?
That
Do Not Disturb.
Yeah, that reads the
Do Not
contact
Disturb
name as it rings.
Is in the settings, and if you go down a little bit, like in the second group of settings, notifications, sounds, and haptics, and Do Not Disturb. Oops. So it's like right here, your settings.
Ken, just a quick note to you, when you're holding your phone up, a couple of things, hold it up fairly high because my thumbnail portraits are blocking the bottom of it, but more importantly, hold it in front of your body because otherwise.
Well, I'm trying to, well,
yeah, I know it disappears if you get it over to the side and in your background, it decides it's not part of you and makes it the background.
There.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But now you're getting the reflection.
Now it's getting screen glare on it.
Yeah, we're getting
right up close to the camera.
So in the settings, a little bit down, Do Not Disturb is like right.
Yep.
Here.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. I was looking under phone.
No, in settings.
Okay. So now I've done 3 things to shut up the phone.
Yeah. So
can
what's gonna
put that
happen?
in
You're
your
not gonna
pillow.
get a phone call again.
Yeah. Well, I'll still see it light up. I mean, if I'm really expecting a call on this phone, I'd still
And-
see it.
And what you can do also, you could, if you want to know if you're getting a phone call but don't want the ringer, you can use the flashlight to flash when you get a phone call. Or if you get a notification. So when you get a
Now-
phone call or a notification, your phone will flash
Hmm.
with a flashlight. That gets kind of annoying too.
Yeah, that can be annoying if you're sleeping.
So Steve, I take it you're not traveling just yet?
We're leaving Friday.
Oh, okay.
Where are you going?
Florida.
Ah, my wife's going to Florida next week for 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
We're going for 2 weeks too.
Yeah, she's going in like the first week of April.
Now,
to
the CDC
Orlando.
guidelines said that even though you've been vaccinated fully,
Yeah.
they don't want you to travel.
Well, that's what they may say. It's not what I may do.
Have the two of you had all your shots?
Well, we both had the first shot. We have to wait till the end of the month to get the other one.
Yeah, Carol and I are getting ours on Sunday, our first shot.
I got my
No,
second.
where are you going to
shot
go? The
yesterday.
Dome?
I
No,
got-
I've heard.
Woohoo.
The Kodak
I've heard the
site.
second
Kodak
shot is
Park.
the worst. Oh, okay.
What?
So Ken, you'll have to report on if you have any symptoms, because the people I know who had the second one said that's where they got all the aches
know.
and pains from.
I just can't stop talking. That's what. the symptom is.
There's not much different.
No, today I got it yesterday. My wife and I got it yesterday. And today I felt like, a little like kind of loopy, things were,
Really?
I didn't have like a headache or anything or aches and pains. I just felt like I was kind of loopy.
Okay. Well, they said everything only lasts for a day anyways, and that's
Yeah.
usually you're over it. So that's a good thing because it says it's working then if you have a little side effect.
Yep. Yep.
So that's kind of what you want to hear.
My aunt and uncle had nothing. They said they had no side effects, just a little pain in the arm for a day.
For the second one?
Both. I think they had both.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I know the
No,
first
but-
one, I didn't have it. I was
The first one.
surprised that I didn't even felt that I had like a little swelling or anything like that. I was like, the next day I was like, wow, I don't feel any different.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Carol,
So
went
that's good.
Saturday, CVS and Spencerport Road. She was there for about 45 minutes. I was waiting in a car. She had like 15 or 20 people ahead of her and that many in line when she left. I went the next day. I was in and out in 10 minutes.
All depends on what time of day, because I went to the
1
Dome
o'clock. 1
and
o'clock.
I went at 3 and I went through the line and everything pretty quickly. And she said, that's a good time to come. It's the middle of the afternoon.
Well, I was at 1 o'clock and it turned out I wasn't even on their list. So I had to
Wow.
go back to the consultation thing and they looked through stuff. I was okay. I went back up. They put me through and I went down. There was no line whatsoever. I just sat down and got a shot.
Which one
Nope.
did you get?
Pfizer.
Pfizer.
I had to go
We
back-
got Pfizer
both
too.
go back on the 28th to get our second shot. And then 2 weeks after that, I'm ready to go play poker.
Oh, win some money, huh?
Well, we'll see.
I have this guy that I know, he just is retiring from the post office after a long time. And he's right now, he's at the casino. And he started with 50 bucks. He says, I'm up to almost $200 now. He said, I'm doing well. And he's leaving before he spends it all,
Yeah,
loses
talk
it.
to him in 10 minutes.
They're all gone.
I drove by Del Lago the other day and the parking lot was pretty full.
They don't have poker. If they don't have poker, I'm not interested.
How do they social distance like table games? How do you play blackjack with 6 feet apart?
They don't, but they have plexiglass dividers.
Plus, you got to figure that people who go to casinos are willing to take a gamble.
Oh,
That's
Not
true.
me. That's why I play poker.
Good one, Charlie.
So if someone stands up, do they then wipe it down before someone else sits down?
Yeah, yeah. They do. They got teams going around wiping everything down. Somebody gets up, they get right in there. I'm just talking about not from direct experience, but hearsay.
And what about the chips? Do they like do they just use the same chips for everybody?
Yeah.
Like usual?
Poker, there's no way of controlling that. Chips you would rake in came from the other players and the dealer. But I wouldn't go until I'm vaccinated. And then I just watch.
Yeah, you gotta wait. You gotta wait 2 weeks after you get your last shot.
Right, middle of April.
So even traveling, they only say 4 days, just go and come back and then get a COVID test. And that's it. So there isn't even a 2-week quarantine.
Well, there was that thing you were listening to on Star Talk the other day with the CDC doctor. Was it the Johnson & Johnson vaccine can be stored in a refrigerator, but the other two need a super deep freeze, and so they don't
-100 below or something.
They don't travel well.
Well, what they said with the Pfizer was trying to get a modification because they said it doesn't have to be stored at such a low temperature. It could be stored at 0 degrees for like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah, I had heard a similar thing.
And I don't
I've
know
heard
if
that
they
they're
approved it or not, but
I've heard that they're trying to come up with a pill now too to take. But that's not the initial shots that you're getting, but it's down the line that if you need a booster or something like that, instead of getting the shot, they might just have a pill that you would take and kind of keep it under control. So we'll see. There's all sorts of stuff coming out now that's, 6 months from now, a year from now, who knows?
Well, with the flu, you get a recombination every year. Every year I get a flu shot, and every year it's different. And so probably 2022, we're going to need a new COVID shot that'll be somewhat different.
Right. By that time, you just go down to your CVS or wherever and get your shot, just like you do the flu.
Yeah, but they're going to have to develop it.
yeah. But this is
I'm sure they're working on it now. But
the flu shot they make from eggs.
Right.
This COVID vaccine, they use something that signals the body to
RNA.
have the RNA. So it's a little bit different, or a lot bit different than the flu, where it actually uses the part of the actual flu and the eggs of chickens to make the flu vaccine, where this is just, signaling the RNA or what, I don't know exactly how it works, but, signaling the body to fight off the COVID vaccine or the COVID.
Well, but anyways, the point is that as we go on, there'll be all sorts of things coming out, to kind of take or get a shot maybe, or take a medication, whatever it is. We'll just see. It'll just be something every year because it's going to change and mutate just like the flu. So, then hopefully nothing new will come along.
2 years ago, they were talking about developing a vaccine that wouldn't use, they wouldn't be targeting like the tips of the stems, but they would be targeting the stems themselves. And that would work on a lot of different viruses. And of course, the stems don't really change. So
Well, we'll see what happens now that we've
Yeah.
got people working on it to really work on to this and hopefully no obstructions to doing it and get up to full speed. We should be hopefully doing pretty good.
I want to mention very
But
quickly,
again- No, go ahead.
I don't know that it has any practical consequences, but although we officially ended the CIDER meeting, it is still streaming on YouTube. So, and I mean, that's okay. I'm not complaining, but everything we say will be part of the record here.
I will stop
Hey,
the
Steve.
stream. Yeah.
Oops.
I
Turn
just
us
found-
off.
I just found a picture of flu virus and COVID virus. I posted in the chat. So the
Oh, we
difference
know what
between-
COVID looks like.
Flu looks very, very similar because it is also a coronavirus.
Yeah.